What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another Ask the Expert live Q&A, where I spend a few hours answering any and all of your fence-related questions and generally catching up with you guys and seeing how your things are going with you. Guys, I hope your week's doing super well. As you guys that are coming in from Facebook likely saw, well, should have taken the overlay off. Anyway, as you guys likely saw, I've got a guest coming in, going to answer any and all of your stain questions. As you guys probably know, Caleb over at Sand Seal Experts sponsors our weekly live Q&A. So we like to bring him on once a month and let you guys ask any and all of your stain-related questions. So without further ado, Caleb, how are you?
I'm making a lot of noise here, but I'm doing good. It's good to be here. And good to see your smiling face, man.
Man, I'm super glad to have you on. This is one of the highlights of my month for sure. I always like have it on my calendar. I know that the last Thursday of the month I get to chat with Caleb, and I look forward to that a lot.
Well, next month I'm going to have a real nice blue shirt to go with that orange one.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about next month. What we've already talked about it a lot. You guys see it scrolling, but what's going on next month?
Man, we have the biggest fence staining, fence restoration, wood staining, deck staining, fence install school, the biggest and best in the world, happening next month. And it's free.
That's incredible. That's incredible, Caleb. You know, you brought me on your live Q&A last night, and that was one of the things I had mentioned was, I go to trainings, pre-pandemic, I would go to, 3 or 4 trainings a year where got a lot of insight, got a lot of, theoretical training, not theory, but, training in theory, I guess you'd say. Less hands-on, I guess is the point.
Yeah.
And I was blown away that I walked away from your university with more knowledge and with more hands-on experience, and yours was free, where a lot of these others are $600, $700, $800. We pay one, I have to pay $1,200 a year to go to.
Yeah, Joe, I think, when I first started this, I'll be honest, I really wanted to do the best paid training on the industry. Sure. And I kept hearing all these horror stories of people who paid, $1,200 or $1,500 for a training class, and they felt like the instructors could have been 1,000 miles away and they'd have been happier. And maybe for wood training, maybe that it was not real world. It was maybe like in a back alley somewhere, and they were showing it on the side of an old wood fence panel, or maybe it was all in a classroom. And what I realized was, man, it's going to be tough to do paid training. And so it just kind of came over me like a ton of bricks to do it for free. And or hit me like a ton of bricks to do it for free. And once I did, I felt that ton of bricks just be lifted off of me, and it just gave me complete freedom to do whatever we want. And I think the training is better now for free than it would have ever been if it was paid, because people can get behind this. We get guys like you, we get experts. We got Ruben that came in last time. You can't afford these people. You can't afford to pay them to come in and do the training, but they'll come and do it for free to help people out. So I think Absolutely. That's a great thing, and that's what we're doing, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. It's snowballing.
Well, Caleb, I'll say this about you. So you and I first met professionally. Ozark Fence. I would reach out to you through Ozark Fence about learning how to stain and learning about your stain product, so we could offer it as a business, as a service.
Mm-hmm.
But then as I chatted with you more, and you took a significant amount of time to teach me and train me and make sure I had all the foundational knowledge I needed. I learned something about you, and that is you've got the giving heart, right? So the shirt you're wearing right now, you'd give to one of your guys if they walked in and needed a shirt,
Yeah, that gets you in trouble sometimes.
Well, that's true. That's true. You can't do it all the time, but you've got the giving heart, and I think you see this. You're putting that on display on a huge scale. Right. You're putting the giving heart into your business and into your training. And that's one of the things, honestly, I like most about you is just your giving heart. And, you're trying to do something with Stain Seal University that I'm trying to do with the YouTube channel. And that is just help people at scale learn more about your trade and try to help them better themselves. I acknowledge that and I appreciate that from you.
Well, Joe, what we've noticed is it's not just me. It's not just you. There's so many people out there that want to share the stuff. It's like all the guys that came in and trained us last class, they drove up from Texas. We couldn't afford to pay for their hotel rooms, and we didn't pay them. But they did it out of the kindness and goodness of their heart. Ruben came over all the way from California and trained us all for free. and we didn't pay for his room or anything. And same with you. You came down and were part of it, and you didn't get a check for that. And but what happens is I think most people realize that they're going to take away as much from it as they give. So you come down, you lay it all on the line, you share what you know, and so do the other 200 people in the room, and you just walk away having grown, and that's kind of what it's all about.
And I like that it makes it accessible for everyone, because really the people that I feel most passionate towards helping and trying to help better themselves and better their business are likely the guys and gals that probably couldn't afford, or if they could afford a $1,500 training, it'd really squeeze them, especially this time of year.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the best time to do training, is really kind of in the off season, right before, right after the season. And so, yeah, a lot of guys, that's tough. It's a tough time to drop $2,000 or $3,000, $1,200 for the class, $500 for the flight, another $300 for the room and meals, and you're there with your friends. So you can't, everybody wants to go out. You got to go spend a little money, and it can wind up being, $3,000 or $4,000 before it's said and done. Yep. Especially if in Nashville, because everybody comes home with 3 pairs of cowboy boots and four hats, so you got to be careful. But
yeah. I don't know how. I know the last day that we all kind of went into Nashville, I don't know how I didn't walk out of there with at least 2-3 pairs of boots, because I know we were looking at some pretty closely.
Yeah, man, that's
easy to do.
That is Nashville for you. But it's just a fun thing. And I know when I first started this, man, I remember sitting on the couch, and going, "What's a wood brightener? What is that? I've heard it. What is that?" And you'd get on the internet and there was nothing about it, and you'd find some forum post from 1996 that some guy that was talking about it, and you were like, "Well, that's 15 years ago, and I don't know about that, And so we're just trying to just expand that knowledge. And a lot of people worry about giving away information, but the thing is we don't know where the trades can go,
Sure.
We know if everybody just keeps on this plane, I don't think we're going to plateau. I think things are just going to change, and everybody's going to get better. So if we can all put our heads together, it'll take us to, I think, a new place that we've never been as contractors and tradesmen.
I agree. Gary Vaynerchuk has he has a ton of quotes, but one of them is, "I can build the tallest building, A, by tearing down all the other buildings around me, or B, by building the tallest building."
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to do, is help everyone build bigger buildings, because then at the end of the day, now you're surrounded by other huge buildings. The rising tide lifts all the ships, sort of thing.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you never know who's there, and that's just the way it is. One of the greatest things I think about these events, not just ours, but all of them, is I'll kind of make a special announcement today. I think this is going to happen. I may be premature, but it's the after hours stuff. And everybody wanted to come to Nashville, but I think we're going to be able to get I guess you might call it a mixer or something, an after hours party on that Thursday night. We're gonna rent out a honky tonk, since we are in the Music City. We're going to try. We haven't got a confirmation on it yet, but I think we got a honky tonk. We'll have a bar. We'll have everybody there.
Well,
it's not going to be loud and crazy, but it'll be just enjoyable enough to get the honky tonk vibe. But what always happens when we hit the bars, or you go down to the place, is too loud. It's going to be personable enough where me and you can sit and have a conversation just like this, and really connect on a higher level, and learn something from one another.
Well, that's a funny thing, Caleb, is, so you and I were both at the Contractor Sales Academy training there in Nashville. Was it a year ago, I guess, a year and a half ago, something like that? And it's funny. So we did, structured trainings during the day, and we visited a few places throughout the day and all that. And then in the evening, we went honky tonking, right? But what was funny is you would find groups of us off in the corner where it's a little bit quieter, and like sitting and talking and like writing notes down or entering notes in our phone. I say this about a lot of events I go to. Now, the events I go to, I gain a lot of knowledge from, don't get me wrong, but I almost feel like, the added value, the cream on top, is the after hours events, all the networking that goes on after the event.
Yeah, well, I think at the, and I'm realizing this more as we put on events. When you put on the event, you've got to skim over the top of things. You've got to give everybody the 30,000 foot view, and then you go and everybody's at a different place. I don't think anybody's business is bigger or better. I think there's people that are further along and there's people that aren't as far along.
Sure.
And so if the guys that are just taking the step from owner operator, they all go get in a group. And then you take the guys that are just quitting their day job, they get in a group. And then you take the guys that are really trying to scale things, and these different groups form. And now you can talk about, in class today, they said this and that. And one guy says, yeah, well, we've been doing that for 3 years. Here's what we learned. And that's where you really take all those ideas and then you flesh them out there after hours. So that's very important.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, so I'm going to be doing a talk on Thursday, just talking about marketing and branding in general. But the thing I think the part of the after hours that makes it more valuable is it's more like this kind of more of a live Q&A where it's less sitting and learning and just trying to absorb all that information and think about how it's relevant to your situation. And it's more of just, okay, now what you said earlier was this. What did you mean? Or how do you think I could apply it? I think that's really where the value comes in. And honestly, for my portion, I think there's going to be a little of both. I think there's going to be some structured, just educational time. And then I want to do half my time educational and half my time just kind of like this live Q&A. I think that's where a lot of value comes from.
I agree. It's going to be a fun thing. We're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And we're going to make some friends. That's for sure.
That's right. Okay, let's say hi to a few people before we talk, get a little bit deeper into the event. First off, Dylan Blanc's here. Fence Prince, I call him. What is up, Fence fan? Prince Fence checking in. What is up, Dylan? How are you, sir? Now, Dylan's dad. Now, Dylan, are you coming to the university? I know your dad's coming. I'd like to know if you're coming. Do you know Caleb, if they're coming or if he's coming?
I was supposed to call Dan today. I'll probably call him this evening.
Yeah.
But you told me a lot of great things about Dan. I know he stained his fence with our mahogany stain a year or so ago. I'd like to hear how that's holding up. And, maybe we can get him up to do some speaking at this event.
There you go. Great minds think alike. Because, I replaced my fence this past summer and went with mahogany. Very nice color. All right. John Bowdy's here. Rowdy Bowdy, I call him. What's up, Joe? John Bowdy here. Caleb, have you met John before? Or have you talked to John?
We're internet friends. I don't know if we've ever shook hands before, but yeah, I've talked to him a lot. He's one of those guys who he calls up and orders post savers from us. And I think he orders stain from us too. So
yeah,
John's a great guy. He's kicking it Stony Creek fence up there, up north of us. So hopefully he's still building fence. Hopefully he's not snowed out.
That kind of triggers something in my mind. We ought to talk about post savers and fence armors later on. Last week in the live, we actually went on their website and because there's several people asking questions about them. So we went on their website, watched a few of their videos, but I'd sure like to talk to you more about that as well. Yep. All right. Trusky42 is here from Minnesota. Hello, Trusky. Truesky? Who knows? Matthew is back with us. Matthew's been with us for, I don't know, probably the last month worth of lives every single week. He's over in the San Francisco Bay Area, and every time he says that, I get so jealous.
Yeah, he's in that redwood capital over there.
Well, Redwood, in the land of beautiful weather. I mean, I don't know. Nice?
Where you don't have to mow the lawn?
Yeah. Well, so one of my trainings, I go to Social Media Marketing World each year, which this year, unfortunately, was canceled. It's in February. Actually, it would have been the week after the university, but I don't know that I've ever been there in February, and it wasn't just beautiful weather.
Yeah, it's really nice. Shorts every day.
This last year, that's why I missed Fence Tech, because it's usually so it would have been instead of Fence University. I usually miss Fence Tech for Social Media Marketing World, because this last year we had a choice. It was in Salt Lake City, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there one evening thinking about it, like, do I want to go to Salt Lake City, Utah in February or the Bay Area? I'd probably rather go to the Bay Area.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Divine Fence is here from Massachusetts. What is up, Divine Fence? How are you? Divine Fence has been here probably the same as Matthew. He's been here for a month or more with lives pretty consistently. I appreciate that a lot.
Yep, I'm seeing them.
What is up, Candace? Very exciting. I'm sure Joe will have orange cowboy hat and matching boots for this trip. So a little backstory. So Candace is our rock star there. She's our retail rock star in the office. So Candace is watching us from the office. And Candace, I tell you what, I would love to find some orange boots and orange cowboy hat, but I wouldn't be allowed to bring them in the house.
I've got you some orange gator skin boots with a gold buckle waiting. You just come on down.
Oh, well, like I said, I would take them in a heartbeat, but I don't know that Taylor would let me in the house with them. She has a strict rule about orange. Dylan says he'll be there. I look forward to meeting both you and your dad.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Truski, hello, Sky. All right. Oh, maybe so. Maybe he's trying to tell us how to pronounce his name. I don't know. Says he's putting in a Postmaster fence March 21st. I love that a lot. So then he goes on to say his name's Matthew Payne. What is up, Matthew? So Postmaster posts, I love these posts a lot. Now I prefer to use Postmaster Plus. There's also, lifetime posts. There's other, purpose-made posts. I like the Postmasters a lot, so I think you'll like them as well. If you got questions about them, ask them on the channel. I'd be sure to like to help you.
They're finally taking off. I've been watching them for years, and I've wondered why are they not taking off. But I think they finally got it dialed in about 2 years ago, and now it's really, really taken off.
I think so. So Trusky says he actually is March of 2021, so he's putting them in here in a couple months. Yeah. So I obviously when you talk to Master Halco, so Master Halco, they own the patent for the Postmaster Plus. I was talking to our Master Halco rep this week, asking him about Postmaster Post pricing specifically, but also availability. So they're 4 to 6 weeks out on delivery on Postmaster Plus post now.
I wonder how the steel shortage that's going on right now is going to come into play here.
Well, the price is going up.
Yeah,
is the first thing we talked about, and then just there's a general shortage, which is crazy. Earlier, early 2020, when I visited the lot, there were Postmaster Plus. I mean, maybe not stacked to the sky, but they had a lot, and now they went from that to 4 to 6 week lead time in a little under a year. So
well, I guess the Trump administration, I think they maybe had some tariffs on steel, didn't they, from China?
I believe so.
I think the current administration, I'm probably guessing that their stance is going to be to reverse that, to bring it in and support the Chinese steel market. So we'll see. I would like to see some more steel manufacturing take place here in America.
I would too. I'm big on supporting community. When I talk about community, it's usually local community, but community can also be nationwide community.
Yeah, right? We are a global world nowadays, that does start at home here. Yeah, it'd be cool if somebody that knew about that would write in here and message us. Any steel plants going up in your neighborhood?
Yeah, so we've got one in Northeast Missouri. It shut down, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And I talked to a guy. What does he do? He's a Boilermaker. I think he was going up there because they're trying to bring it back online. But one of those plants, once it shuts down, it's like a 2-year process to bring it back online.
Wow.
So there's no telling there. We need to do something. I think part of this is a result of the wood shortage that we saw last year. Well, and to be fair, we continue to see in pricing. I think that pushed a lot of the market over to the steel post realm. I mean, our steel posts, they are absolutely a price increase, but when you got to pay, $18, $19 for a 4x4x8, well, now you're in a similar ballpark to that steel post.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people that made their decision a lot easier.
We got to talk about value too. We all know the lifetime of a steel post.
Yeah, it's a lifetime warranty. It's specifically against rust and corrosion. Also includes wind damage. I mean, it's a solid post. You're done. Is it more expensive? It is. But what's the value of not having to go replace posts? Now there's some fence guys, and I see this in my private messages, that do not like people promoting steel posts because their business is not founded, but a big part of their business is repairs and replacement of posts. So when you install a steel post, all of a sudden now that's one less post that they can go replace in 8 to 10 years.
Well, that's true, but there are always going to be wood posts to replace.
There will be, and as a fence guy, if I could not have to replace posts in the future, I don't know that I would complain about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's like anything else. Industries change.
you do.
You know, nobody works on transistor radios anymore, but they work on computer. You know, things change.
Yeah.
So I think if steel posts really get strong, learn to fix gates. There's probably more money and easier things to do than steel post, and that's probably with gates or things like that. Access control. Gate operator's not working. Go out there and work on that. It's easier, and it's probably pays more money. But I get it. You know, if I did only wood post, I'd be concerned. But
Yeah.
you know.
The thing is, you either adapt or you become obsolete, right? I mean, if we as a fencing industry just decided one day we are not installing steel posts, we'll only install wood post. Well, that's fine. The customer that wants that steel post will go find it, and it will be installed for them. Just at that point, you don't get to participate in the process.
I agree.
So we've been using Postmaster Plus, or Postmaster in general. It was Postmaster, now it's Postmaster Plus Post. We've been using those for several years and haven't looked back at all. I mean, the value to the client, to your point earlier, the value in these posts, it's worth every penny. Now, some clients have a hard time seeing that value. You know, if they're in the house if they're just buying it to remodel and then sell, they probably won't see the value.
Yeah.
But if you're in this house and you're making quality decisions and you want this house to stay nice long term, I mean, steel posts are going to be the way to go.
Well, we see that in our everyday lives. If you think about how many things that you've bought that were made overseas that you've bought and you've had to buy it again and you've had to buy it again and buy it again. And it's cheap, but man, grandpa only bought things once.
Yeah, right.
And it probably got sold in a yard sale 20 years ago and that person's still using it.
Sure. Yeah.
So quality is I think we need to take a step back and start putting more emphasis on quality things.
I think you're right, Caleb. I really do. You know, when we're talking about costs associated with these posts, if you replace that post once, you've already surpassed the price of the steel post. Not material cost, but depending on how you buy your post, if they're $20 posts, you've surpassed it. But also the service fee. You know, most fencing contractors have a minimum fee to replace a post.
Yeah.
So if you replace that post once, now all of a sudden you've tripled or quadrupled the cost of just installing the steel post to begin with.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably $300 to $500 to have a post replaced nowadays.
Yeah,
probably $350 for if a small owner operator, probably $350. A big company, maybe $1,500. I know a lot of guys that got a $1,500 minimum.
Yeah, so for Ozark Fence, for my business, it depends on the time of year, right? So, but right now in the middle of winter, it's $750, and that's the cost to roll out 3 guys, a truck, a trailer, and a piece of equipment.
Yeah, you got, it cost.
That's right. That's right. Say hi to a few more people. Sarah's here.
Hey, Sarah.
Any of you that know Sarah, you know that she's my sister and she's the honorary one. And if we're being honest, she's the mean one. So we're not going to leave her up there any longer. So, this is Marcus. This is a conversation that's probably best had some, on a different channel. But I think we start having the conversation of at what point does it make sense? I understand there is a conversation of, losing jobs here and having to move elsewhere, but there's also the conversation of, are there higher level jobs that we can be doing at home? It's like in the business. Can I build a fence? Sure. But I hire guys that are better at building fence and they build it for less than it would cost me to build the fence, because then that helps me climb the ladder, climb the rung. And so then I go to a higher level task. I think we can have that conversation that, we should probably be trying to move our workforce to higher level tasks in general. But I understand your side of the story too, or your side of the conversation as well, is that, we also don't want to abandon these jobs. So it's a hard conversation either way. It really is.
I think more Americans are starting to actually understand and keeping their eyes on economics, though, in general. So, yeah, this topic is going to come up more and more, I think, in just everybody's general life.
It is. Absolutely. Rowdy Bowdy weighing in said, let's replace pickets and stringers and do some staining. That's right. I mean, even if you install your post with steel, even if you install your fence with steel post, you're still going to have to service the pickets and the stringers, the cross members, absolutely. And if you clean it and stain it, then you don't even have to replace those as often.
Yep.
Using a quality stain, of course. Marcus says, raise your children on steel post, folks. That's right. If we could change the industry in general, the fencing industry, to move more towards steel post, we as an industry will be better for it in general. I mean, the guys that solely base their business on repairs and replacement, they probably won't be as well off. But as a general rule, for the fence building industry, I think we'll be better for it because we'll be giving a better value to our customers. Our customers will absolutely be better for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Fence King, what is up? Dan says, I'm just tuning in. Love my mahogany stainless steel fence. Everyone that comes over says, you always have the best, huh? Fence King.
Yep.
That mahogany is so nice.
Somebody's got to do it, though, right?
That's right. Somebody's got to be the king. All right. Trying to just scale through here. All right. This is a good question for you, Caleb. So McQuito wants to know, is it advisable, if possible, to let the pickets dry out, then stain before installing them?
Well, we got 3 different kind of pickets that I can think of, and a 4th one that I was going to mention. One, we got wet green wood, like treated pine. Green may not be the best description for that, but we got treated pine, treated lumber that's soaking wet and treated. And then we got green cedar, all different kinds. Yep. That's not treated. And then we got kiln dried stuff. And then
when you say green, you literally just mean fresh cedar.
Green means it was cut down yesterday. Green, yeah, I think that's the sawmill's term, is when it's cut and milled, and that's it. As soon as it's soaking wet, it's just green. That's right. And some people are staining the green stuff, but they're not having good luck. They're having good luck, but the result is not what it could be. So let your pickets dry out. So the fence in the background here that you see right over my head, see that green stuff right there? That's a treated pine fence. It was about 24 hours old when it was stained 3 or 4 years ago, and it took stain beautifully and held up for a long time. In my opinion, I would let any fence dry out for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Generally, that's because if you hire a contractor, it's going to take them generally a couple of weeks to get to you. And so usually where we catch customers in the process is they call us, they say, hey, in 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have a fence built. And usually we're 3 to 5, 6 weeks out. And so if they sign up right then, when their fence is 3 weeks old, we're going to hit it with stain. There are some exceptions. If it's a cedar fence, chances are that within a day or 2, it's going to be dry enough to stain.
Well, McQuito clarified that they are dealing with a cedar.
Yeah.
Materials.
So the best thing you can do is to get yourself a moisture meter, and they're about $20 on the internet, and or at your local hardware store, they're $30. So I would go there instead and get you a moisture meter and just stick it on the fence. It's going to depend. If you get like an import cedar, like a Chinese or Japanese cedar, it's probably kiln dried, so it's probably ready to stain even before it's installed. Sure. If you get a Western red cedar or like an incense cedar, it's going to be cut green and it's going to be bundled green. So when you get it, it's probably still going to be somewhat wet. Joe, how wet are your Western red Alta boards when you bust a bundle open right now?
They're pretty dry. They're between 10 and 12%. Well, and it depends, on what the weather was like when they were transported and all that. But typically 10, 12%.
That's phenomenal. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, after a rainstorm, we're going to have to let them dry out. I think McQuito's question might be more of is it better to pre-stain versus post-stain? Is that the word for it? Staining before or after the fence is built?
Well, the U.S. Forest Products Lab did a study. It's like a 25-year-long study, and this was with painted siding. But the siding, so the UV damage occurs instantly. When it's put out in the sun, it starts degrading instantly. And what happened was they did a study showing, and they had an A and a B, just like you see Joe and I in the screen here, A and B. On the left was the lumber that was pre-primed and pre-painted. Or I think it was actually just a primer. It was pre-primed and then installed. And this was lap siding. So it overlapped just like vinyl siding, but it was made out of cedar. And then the second the second one was installed, let sit in the sun for 10 days, and then it was painted after installation. And 25 years later, the one on the left, the one that was pre-finished still had quite a bit of finish on it. It still looked respectable. The one that waited 10 days and was stained after the fact there was nothing left. The wood was starting to rot. There may have been a little paint up under the corner edge. It was just a night and day difference. So if you've got the ability to downstack your lumber, if it's wet, and pre-stain it, it's always going to be better, because you get the top, the bottom, you get all 6 sides. And especially if you dip it, it's going to just soak up so much more, and you're able to reclaim your stain as it drips back into your tank. And it's probably more eco-friendly too, because we're not putting any overspray in the air, and we're not putting any drips on the ground. So if you can pre-stain, go for it. And Joe sells pre-stained pickets. So
absolutely. I was going to say, so earlier this week we pre-stained for a job we're installing, but we pre-stained a bundle of pickets and a partial bundle of 2x4s. And in the past, now we also have experience staining on site. We also have experience using a staining machine, so not a dip tank, but a machine that sprays the pickets as they roll through. And then now we built a dip tank. I cannot stress enough how much of an advocate I am for pre-dipping fence pickets. Mm-hmm. From the business perspective, to Caleb's point, you save yourself time because you're not taping off a house or taping off a car, worrying about drips and drops. You're reclaiming the stain. So we use approximately half the stain we would have used going out. We would have sent with a crew to go stain it, to spray it. And it's, to Caleb's point also, you get all 6 sides. For a fact every square centimeter of this board has been coated because it's fully submerged. And we had some pickets that had been stained before using the machine, compared them to the ones that were dipped. I think the ones that are dipped hold more stain as well. They look more like a richer, deeper color.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you've only got a second for it to soak in when you spray it, and then when you dip it, it's a lot better process. It's not the fastest in the world. If we had 20 truckloads to do, we're gonna use the machine.
Correct.
But definitely the dip tank is a great thing. Thing.
So we were kind of timing ourselves. Now this was the first time using a dip tank, so there's always a learning curve involved. But we can dip and stack on the dry rack a pallet about every 3 hours, a little bit shy of 3 hours. So it's not inconceivable to think you could do a couple bundles a day pretty easily. Probably quicker once we get a system down and a process to doing this, but it's not super slow either.
Yeah, when the guys that are really good with the dip tanks, they can do 2 bundles, 2 units before lunch, 2 units after lunch on a tank. And like the machines that we got, the big machine, we can do about a truckload a day with it.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's 10,000 pickets. So it's a big difference. But do you need a machine like that if you're building 200 feet of fence? Absolutely not.
No. But yeah, so we're, one of the things I like that I've been telling fence guys lately is you need to offer, and the reason I have you on, honestly, is to try to teach fence guys that you absolutely should be offering a staining service in addition to your fence building service. I mean, it added, I don't know, something like 10% of our net revenue last year. We found another 10% in staining services, whether it's cleaning a fence and staining it, pre-staining it, staining a fence that's already been installed. I mean, it's found money.
Yeah, and to your point about that, I grew up in the fence business just like you, and family business. But I found that I could do better, a lot better, and actually just staining fences only, and that's why we don't build fence anymore. We just stain. And but I live in Tennessee, Joe, and the ground's hard here. So what we found was that we can take 2 days to build 200 feet of fence and maybe make $600 on it, or we can go out there in an hour and make $600 staining it. Which do you want to do? That's so the numbers are different nowadays than they were back then, but it was just kind of a no-brainer, especially for a young skinny guy like me who wasn't the best at breaking rock with a rock bar and things like that,
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this is an added benefit to pre-staining. So we've got a building that we've got the dip tank in now. It was 36 degrees. So we stained for 2 days, The first day was 36 degrees. We had the heat on. We felt fine. The second day, it snowed almost an inch that morning. And so we had guys in there and we were staining, cleaning up, and doing all that. So you can also add staining to your services 12 months out of the year instead of 6 or 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody who wants to learn about dip tanks and staining, we'll be glad to point you in the right direction. It's a fun thing. It's really neat to do, actually. So
Boo Boo Bang Bang is here with us. Boo Boo Bang Bang's been with us almost since the beginning, I think.
What part of Tennessee?
That's right. That's right. Now he's asking the hard hitting questions here, Caleb. What's your favorite Cashville hot chicken joint?
Man, hot chicken didn't show up on the scene in Nashville till like 2018, right? All these Nashville people, or all these people asked me about hot chicken in Nashville, and I said, man, what are you talking about? And we looked it up, and I think it just came out in 2016 or 2018. And wow. It's a brand new thing, man. It'd be like if they called you up and said, what about Springfield hot chicken? You'd never even heard of it.
Well, of course, now that it's a thing, we have a restaurant specifically for hot chicken now.
Isn't that silly? Yeah.
Hot Cluckers is what it's called.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't ever go eat any hot chicken joints. Our Nashville's pretty sewed up, pretty locked down right now. So we live on the outskirts of Nashville. We don't get to town. We don't get out in the cities much. I
don't blame you. I know when we were there for training, we went out to eat one evening, and we're pretty surprised to learn that basically the whole city is mandated to shut down at 10 p.m. I think.
Yeah,
9:30, something like that.
Yeah, most people now moved all their business, and all the nightlife has gone to the surrounding communities. Franklin, Brentwood. We're out in Wilson County, and we're still alive and well and thriving out here. So.
Yep, that's right. All right. So Boo Boo Bang Bang goes on to ask, any ideas where to source steel posts and cedar in Middle Tennessee? Caleb, you might know more about that than I would.
We've been thinking about bringing them in ourselves. So we bring in cedar and pre-stain it and sell it, or we'll do the service if you have cedar and you want us to stain it. Steel post, not Postmaster, but I do have a source for steel posts that I can put you on. Just get in touch with me. Just call Stain and Seal Experts.
Okay.
We'll be glad to point you in the right direction. And the season's almost here. So I know of a source of a lot of steel posts, a whole lot of steel posts, but they're round. And I think they're not Schedule 40. They may be like a 0.95 wall or it's not a 0.65. It's heavier than that. So I'll find out.
Maybe like a 20 weight CS20 or something like that.
Yeah, it's something. I'm not exactly certain, but.
Well, guys, if you want to get a hold of Caleb, I actually have Stain and Seal Experts website linked in the description below. You can click on that. They've got the contact us. Is that right, Caleb? You got a contact button on there?
You can do that, or our office number, 615-785-1861. Whoever's watching and listening from our company, just drop our information in the box. It'd be fantastic.
That's right. Drop it in the comments. This is kind of a good question. So Donna and Shell Parham, you may have already covered this. So I need to let concrete dry with posts for a couple days before installing the rest of the fence. What do you think, Caleb?
Joe, do you want to start a fight right now, right here?
Yeah.
I know successful companies that do it both ways. When I was in the business, we always would. Well, I'll be honest. When I was in the business, we did it both ways. The top guys that I see, like Mr. Fence, Ruben, Borg Fence, all these guys, I'm seeing a shift to dry pouring and dry packing because for several reasons. And the worst thing that I can see happening if you do pour your concrete wet, I would let it set for at least 24 hours, because the worst thing that can happen is you start nailing up runners when the concrete's not cured. Yep. and you break the post loose in the concrete, and you won't notice it, but when the wind blows 6 months later, it'll be very noticeable. So you either got to build it all the same day, and then I don't know what y'all call it nowadays, but top string the top line and get the top line right. Yep. And walk away from it, or you got to set your posts wet and let them dry for a day.
Yeah. So, and it's really going to depend on soil conditions too. So we still wet set our posts, but after talking to Sean and looking at the data, I think this winter, one of the things that's going to be on our mind is dry compaction method. But so we just got, like I said, almost an inch of snow earlier this week. That means that snow's thawing and it's going straight into the ground. So the ground's going to hold a lot of ground moisture. which is going to mean concrete won't set up as quickly. So if you're using wet set, it's also going to depend on how much rain and or snow and ice you've had lately. All right. So Boo Boo wants to know, describe a dip tank and how to build one. Why don't you tell us about yours, Caleb, and I'll tell them about mine.
I'll send you a video, Boo Bang Bang, and or you can come out to our place and check one out. But basically, you need a metal tank. Think cattle trough. That's a good way to start. Think of it. Let's draw it here. Let's use the worldwide. Let's use technology here. So there's so many ways to do it, but the most basic design is going to be. All right. Let's see if I can do my best Bob Ross here. Basically, you need. We're looking at it from the side. You need a tank. You need legs. So this tank, we're gonna draw it like this. So here's our tank. Here's our legs. Okay, stain goes in here, and you maybe a valve coming out the bottom or out the side for the stain to come out. Now, what you need on top of this is, again, I'm going to draw a side profile. You need a backer that's going to be kicked off at an angle, and then you need a ledge, some sort of a ledge here. I like to use 12-inch. So you dip them in the trough, you just slosh them around, and then you stack them up. So if we're looking at a cross section here of the tank and our steps here, you'll end up having boards laying all the way across. I know that picture is not very good, but all the boards lay across the back and they drip back down into the tank. And after an hour, the boards are, you can tell by looking at the edge of the boards. When the color changes, they're dry, you pull them out and they're ready to go. You can put them in a bundle right away and off you go. Some people use 55-gallon barrels. Some people just build them straight out of steel. And what did you build yours out of, Joe?
Yeah, we built it out of stainless. We had a fabricator, just build it. We're calling ours right now version 1.0, and we've got some ideas on version 2.0 eventually. But it's exactly as you described it. It's think trough, and that's essentially what it is. Ours we had made 2 foot wide. Now we made it 2 foot deep as well. That was a mistake. It really only needs to be about 12 to 16 inches deep. Because really you only need about 6 inches of stain. And if you think about it, all you're doing is submerging your pickets. You don't need a ton of stain in there. But the key to this whole thing is the drying rack that has a drip tray leading back into your dip tank, because you're reclaiming all of that stain, and you reclaim a lot of stain. I made the note. I kind of mentioned to the guys when we were in the middle of dipping these. I was like, man, it sounds like a rainstorm, just because of all the stain dripping back into the tank. It sounded like we're in the middle of a rainstorm.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stain we reclaimed.
I've got a really cool idea for a dip tank. Would be to have a really long drying rack with a gutter under it that leads back into a central spot, and then you have your dip tank. Let's say you've got 30, 40 feet of drying rack, but you've only got one 10-foot tank, or I think our tank's 18 feet. But that tank slides. It moves around and goes with you. So the tank slides, and now you've got 40 or 50 feet of pickets stacked up, and it all drips. It still drips all back into the thing. Would be really good for doing one color.
Correct. I like this idea so much because that's the issue we ran into. Ours is 18 feet as well. The drying rack is also 2 foot deep, 18 feet wide, and we ran out of space. A bundle of pickets used up one whole row and then half another row. And so we barely had enough room in this for one bundle of pickets and then, the associated 2 befores to go with it. And that was for one job, and that wasn't even a full job. So that was kind of the limiting factor that we discovered right off the bat. So I like your idea, because that's really all you need is a piece of gutter to then catch the drippings and move them back into the stain tank.
Yep. And and you could even hook a winch to it or something. A little electric winch to move the tank down, because it's going to be heavy. But there's a lot of fun ways to do it. And a dip tank operation is pretty cool. It's pretty neat.
It is. I think it's the way staining's going, pre-staining's going, just because, with these machines are nice that do it, but the one that we used, it needed just a lot of ongoing maintenance. It needed to be tweaked a lot to get the flow correct and keep the flow right. The pumps had issues with recirculating sawdust. Dipping, you get past all of that. You get a
Yeah.
smooth, even coat. You let it self-level, which is
Mhm.
what we're doing when we stain on site. We're flood coating, letting it self-level.
Yeah, we went through several machines, and that's just plain and simple. You're not going to get the best result, in my opinion, from the small machines. You really got to spend money. Once you get on up there in price, you can get a really nice machine that'll do
Yeah.
everything you want it to do, and it'll spit a board out every second. But until you get to that certain level, things are just so much smaller, and they do need much more tweaking. The
Yeah.
big boy machines, you set those and forget them.
What's a ballpark cost? I know it probably varies widely, but what's a ballpark on something like that?
Probably 60,000 to $250,000.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of around. Yeah. I looked for about 30 seconds and realized that the few that I found were 100,000 plus. And I said, well, let's see what we can build a dip tank for. And it was, I want to say it's about $2,200 is what we
Yeah.
built this thing for. There's a lot of stainless, and stainless is not inexpensive, but better than 100,000.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's for your operation. It's perfect. You can put on 4 dip tanks cheaper than you can put on that machine. And the problem is the dip tank. It doesn't. You. It's like a boat. You can look out at that dip tank when it's not in the water. You know, like a boat not being in the water. The dip tank doesn't bother you. But if you got $100,000 machine out there and it's not making noise, you got a problem. You know,
yep.
so you can justify it a lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Boo Boo, the dip tank's the way to go. I'm also gonna do a video on our dip tank just to kind of show it, because I think, here's the thing with dip tanks is when I was getting into staining, I'd asked a few people, and a few people sent me videos, but they're like, hey, do me a favor, do not share this. Don't let anybody know about this. So this is my secret.
We're
Like,
gonna
wait
get.
a minute. Like
We're gonna
six,
get some. Yeah, we're gonna get some flack over this for sure, Joe.
I'm sure, but there were like six different guys that were like that they thought they had the secret. It was like, uh, I don't know how to tell you this, but it's pretty similar to the other 5 I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't think we're holding on to secrets here anymore. And I mean, listen, in today's day of technology, there aren't any secrets anyway.
Well, here's the deal. You think you know everything, and then you get on YouTube, and some guy like in Milwaukee who's an accountant is like, I'm doing my deck this weekend, and I'm dipping my spindles, and he's got a miniature dip tank that he thought of all on his own, and he thinks he's a genius. And you're like, that's the same thing you're doing.
Yeah.
There's nothing new under the sun. So,
well, and here's the thing. In general, my thing with knowledge is if we each hoard our own knowledge, then we're only limited to our knowledge. But if we share our knowledge, then we can grow it. If these 6 guys had each compared notes on dip tanks and then modified and made improvements, can you imagine what they would be today?
Yep.
Rather than trying to hoard that knowledge and keep it to themselves. I mean, we would probably have like the ultimate dip tank.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem, man.
Each one of us is reinventing the wheel. It kind of feels like, but I'm gonna do a video and we're gonna show our dip tank. Not saying that it's the ultimate, because we've already acknowledged that it is version 1.0, and we have a list of notes for version 2.0.
What is your step made out of, or your shelf?
So it's, what is it, polycarbonate? It's just a really slick polycarb. So the walls are. The bottom is still a stainless, so that the stain slicks off really well. And then above that we have. So what's interesting is we found some metal. The fabricator found some metal. It's a supplier here locally called Rose Metal, but they make round dog tags.
Okay.
So what they had sheets of this metal that just had these, I don't know, 3/4 inch holes stamped out of them, like Swiss cheese is what it looked like. And so we used that. It was fairly inexpensive because for them it was just byproduct. But expanded metal kind of came to mind, or step grading that you had mentioned.
That's what we used. We wanted something heavy duty, and it works good. But I like what you're talking about, though, that material.
The polycarbonate on the sides does really well. It's light, so we're not trying to stand up something really heavy. It also cleans up easily. Here's the thing. So version 1.0, the walls are straight, and they're caulked at the bottom. The caulking wasn't flexible. It was a stiff caulking. When it dries, it gets really stiff. What happens is when you're laying boards on this, even though it's stainless, and even though it's supported, it flexes, and it cracked that caulking. And so we were left with some stain on the floor because the stain dripped down just like it was supposed to do, and it hit that caulking, and then it seeped under. Some of it did. So we lost probably about a gallon of stain on the floor.
Yeah, so our tank has the bowl, if I can get the angle right, and our backing plate comes down into it.
Yeah.
And then the step sticks out over top of it. So there's no possible way
for it to leak.
Is your back wall cocked at an angle, or is it straight up and down?
It's straight. It's straight.
Mistake. You want it cocked at an angle so that there's no way that unit of lumber can fall back on your people.
Yeah, we learned that too. There was a lot of lessons learned that day.
Okay. Just chop it and put it at an angle. They should be able to do that for you.
Yeah, so then your boards, instead of your boards laying vertical, if you're looking side profile, they're leaned over.
Right, that's about the angle you want that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look at us learning things together.
Yeah, and you got to build it too. That's part of it. You got to build it so that it can take the weight and not flip over. So we keep ours up against a wall. You've seen it. We keep ours.
I'd like so when I come out, I'd like to see it again. Knowing what I know now and having built one, I'd like to see another one and go, oh, that's what we did.
Oh, and also, there's a lot better versions than the one that we got. Ours is like a backup thing, and we don't use it that much. If I had to do it over again, it'd be stainless, and it wouldn't be a round trough. It would be flat bottom and 45 up.
Yep. And so ours isn't 45. Ours is a square trough. But I also, like I said, ours is 2 foot deep. I would only make it about 12 inches deep. Just makes it easier. You're not reaching down to get boards and pick them back up. Because you only need about 6 inches of stain, 6 inch deep of stain, because you're putting fence pickets, or 2x4s, which is 1.5 inches, on the skinny side. So, I mean, unless you're regularly staining like 6x6 posts or something, you wouldn't need anything more than 6 inches of stain. So I ordered 3 barrels, 3 55-gallon drums of stain. We used one, and I shot myself. I just felt like I shooting myself in the foot because we put 1 55-gallon drum in there, and it gave us about 6 inches worth of stain.
Oh,
I ordered way too much, but now we've got stain for moving forward.
Yeah. So that was the problem. There's this company called Eagle Dip Tanks, and they make these huge dip tanks for pallet wood. Like you take all they make pallets, and they dip it, and they treat it, and it'll do 2 units at a time. One will go down and one will go up, and they'll drip, and you don't have to unbundle it. And I thought, I'm going to be a genius, and I'm going to buy one of those things used, and I'm going to dip full units of fence pickets, and I'm just going to leave them down there for a long time. And when they come out, the whole bundle will be done. I did the math on how much stain it would take to fill the tank up, and it was like $90,000 worth of stain at a manufacturer's cost. And I was like, that's probably not going to work. $100,000 to stain 1 unit of pickets.
Yeah. That it's not so economical.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a national wholesaler or something. But even then, I don't know that would work.
That's the way it is.
Candace wanted to weigh in on the Nashville chicken. She says Springfield has cashew chicken. So that's something like we're known for. I guess like in the food community, is Springfield, Missouri is known for cashew chicken. It's like the birthplace of cashew chicken. Have you ever had cashew chicken, Caleb?
No, sir.
Well, okay. We need to, next time you're out this way, we need to get you some because it's delicious. It is a fried chunk chicken. So no bones, just chunk chicken fried. And then it's like a peanut soy sauce.
Yeah, that's kind of where my mind was going.
Yeah, it is
maybe a little bit oriental.
What's that?
Chinese, maybe like a Chinese General Chicken, kind of similar.
It is. It's the same. It's the same restaurants that sell General Chicken, sweet and sour pork, that sort of thing. I sell the cashew chicken.
Nice.
It is delicious. All right, Boo Boo is glad that you did not buy into the hot chicken. He doesn't eat it either. Oh, that's interesting. So, actually, I think I learned this last time I was out there. So, Lebanon is the home of Cracker Barrel.
Yep. We're known more for that than we are for hot chicken. That's for sure.
Yeah, I never knew that until when I was at training last year. We stayed at the hotel that's owned by Cracker Barrel. It's where they take their management, or they put their management staff in the hotel. It's right next to the Cracker Barrel that they do all their training. So anyone management.
Only the best place to stay for us, the Staining University instructors.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Do you remember?
What's that?
Did they have a big conference room there? Did you see it?
Yes, they have.
I didn't see one. I don't think so.
Andy's she's hollering over my shoulder here that they do have one. So.
Oh, okay. I just didn't see it.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah, I did not go exploring. I tell you what we do have. So so this time we're staying at the La Quinta, and I've got a suite there. I've got a big suite, thinking that if we need a place for like half a dozen of us to go one evening and kind of brainstorm stuff, I've got a little spot there too.
Oh, cool.
So, all right, Boo Boo's gonna call you, Caleb.
Thank you. Come see us. Sounds like he's really close to us.
So I forgot to say that. So Nashville, born and raised. So he's right in your neck of the woods.
Yep. He must have a fence company. Throw your company name in.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear that. Because Boo Boo's been with us probably since day one on the lives. He's been with us just all throughout. He or she. I shouldn't judge. Makito says so their homeowner probably going to use a bucket and a roller to pre-treat my pickets.
Yeah, that'll work.
So Makito, one thing I saw when I was doing research on YouTube on kind of DIY tanks is there was a guy that it was like a 4-inch, I want to say it's 4-inch PVC. No, it hadn't been bigger. Yeah, it might have been 4-inch PVC that he cut the very top of it off and he capped it, siliconed it. He used like a 12-foot piece of it, and then he filled that with stain and used it as like a dip tank. He would dip one side and then flip it because it's only 4-inch PVC, and then dip the other side. So,
a lot of guys will actually take. I've seen this in Texas. They get 6 mil plastic like you put underneath your house.
Mm-hmm.
They just get some of that and they just form up a trough with it and staple it up high up on the wall. And maybe put some cinder blocks or something around it, fill it up with stain, and dip their pickets that way.
Interesting.
Yep. And if you make a step inside of it, you can stack your pickets on the step. And
let it drain that back in.
That's the cheapest way in the world to do it, and it'll be 250,000 times faster than doing it with a bucket and roller.
Well, absolutely it will, and you'll use significantly less stain.
Mm-hmm.
The only stain that you'll use is exactly as much as the pickets absorb.
Mm-hmm.
There's no waste to it. Unless you're like me and the caulking cracks, and you waste about a gallon of it on the floor.
Is it really a gallon, Joe, or was it more?
It was probably more. So we spent one day staining, and then we spent the next half a day cleaning up just that mess. We had to get some compound, some dry compound that absorbs oil, like oil leaks. And then we had to sweep it, and then we mopped it with Zep, and then it was like a brand new floor.
Now, that's the good thing about concrete floors. You got to have it when you're pre-staining.
Yeah, you really do. And so then what we went did is got, like, to what you just said, some 6 mil plastic, and we lined the drying rack in 6 mil plastic, draining it all into the tub.
Yeah.
Yep. That'll be the last time we do that. All right. So Marcus has a question: string line versus lasers. I would assume we're talking about laying out a fence or setting the post, maybe. What do you think, Caleb?
Man, I'm old school, Joe. The string does not lie.
I agree. In the lasers, I don't know. Laser would be incredibly hard to use in daylight when you're outside trying to build something, I would think.
How many times were you out digging fence with your dad and your grandpa, and they'd say, "Quit touching the string. Get off the string. Get off the string.
Get off the string. Get off the string." Or pick it up. Pick the string. Don't pick it up. Get it out of the wind. Don't touch the string. And a lot of times that was the sentence. Pick it up. Pick it up. Don't touch the string.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes
you can dig a post hole without moving the string. You're doing good.
Yeah.
I like the string. The string works really well for setting your posts. The string works well for laying your line out. The string works well for grading the top of a fence. I'm all about a string. If I were to start it today, that's the way I would do it.
Yeah, so we did a video quite a while ago here on the channel, like the top 5 tools I keep in my truck, and it's just one of them's a string line. Yeah. And it's so versatile. Now, I mean, you need to consider that string needs to be taut. Like, it needs to be very tight, or else it can, the wind will affect it, or you also need to make sure it's up off the ground so that the grass isn't messing with it. A hump in the ground isn't affecting it, that sort of thing. I mean, you need to be careful with it. You need to use common sense with it. But to your point, what you had said earlier, Caleb, a string doesn't lie.
Yeah,
If
well,
it's straight, it's straight.
you said something that will make it lie. The wind. If you're running like a 500-foot stretch, that you brought back terrible memories of the string being blown 3 inches over, and you see the middle of your line does that. And so that's why you wrap it every so many. How if you're running a 500-foot stretch, how many times would you go ahead and set a post and wrap it or whatever, another stake?
Yeah, it depends on the terrain, 50 to 100 foot, thereabouts. If it's nice and flat and straight, maybe every 100. But if it's hilly or if the terrain's weird or if it's really windy, probably every 50 foot.
Bringing back old memories.
Yeah, it's not great. So we don't use a string line when we're running the top pickets because I've seen. I mean, those of us in these fence building groups, we all see the pictures of a top line that's got a dip in it, and it's that string was not tight. Or it became loose over time, and the guy, whoever was building this fence thought the string was accurate, and it wasn't. So
there's some guys that can work magic with a string on the top line, and they can just make it absolutely perfect.
Well, that's the thing. It also depends on the individual, though, too, Caleb. I mean, there's guys in these groups. My granddad was one of these guys that could eyeball posts.
Yeah.
I mean, he would just as soon, look at the post and eyeball it in.
That's growing up, that's what I would do. I was the guy. My dad would be down there looking with that one eye, and I would go down there and sometimes the string, maybe a post didn't touch the string, or maybe one did, but you would eyeball it at the end.
Yeah. Well, what channel was it, Caleb? There was a channel. Mark Olson did it. Was it the SWI channel? Maybe he did a video series outlining eyeballing in posts.
Yeah.
And the way he explained it makes perfect sense. Now he's typically eyeballing in round post, so a square 4x4 would be a little bit different.
I know as a kid in the fence business, we would always use the string, but the eyeball was always the finishing touch. It had to pass that test. If it was perfect on the string at the bottom, but the top might have been a little off, you had to eyeball it and get that top right.
That's right. Well, and my granddad's point was accurate when he said the customer isn't going to judge us using a string. The customer's going to judge us using their eyeballs.
Yep. And my dad said the same thing, but backwards. He said, nobody's looking at the bottom. They're looking at the top. You got to get the top right.
100%. Yeah, absolutely they are. No one's going to crawl hands and knees and compare to the bottom of a post.
Yep. So that's it. The string. I would be, but as we talk about growing, I see the Mr. Fence tools, and I see maybe lasers and stuff coming out. If a laser was out there, imagine how that was just super accurate and maybe would follow grades and stuff. I don't know how that would work, but
I mean, you would have to. I don't know how it would work. I agree. I mean, we don't need to lock ourselves into one method or one technology. I mean, we need to always be experimenting and pushing the boundaries a little bit. We did a video last week on testing post foam, and I catch a significant amount of flack for it from fence guys. It's like, why don't you use concrete? Concrete's the tried and true method. Only use concrete. Don't use foam. And the thing is, like, I agree. I mean, we still use foam as a business, but I want to test things. I want to try things because I want to see if we might be able to improve our process. If that foam technology works and it is, the cost needs to come down on it because it's still fairly expensive as compared to concrete, but you've got no water. You don't have to worry about getting water to the job site if the job site doesn't have water. I mean, significantly lighter. I think it was 4 pounds for a box that held 2 posts worth of foam. So a couple pounds of post compared to 80 to 120 pounds per post of concrete. I mean, we always need to be trying. We always need to be trying to find the next, advantage or next technological leap.
I love the idea of foam, but we did a job November last year. It was probably 3,000 feet of black 4-rail. Yep. And I came out, I had a new foreman that was working, and I came out and kind of got him lined up on how I like to see these 4-rail fences sprayed. We'd like to run 2 guns at a time.
Yep.
And every post was set with foam, and every post was loose. And it wasn't because they were shallow. And
right.
just really, and the foam stuck out of the ground,
Yep.
quite a bit on every post. And that really just kind of, I thought, well, this, foam's not there yet.
Was the post loose in the foam, or was the foam moving with the post?
To the best of my memory, the foam was loose in the ground.
Yeah. So that's been my experience. So the first round of testing we did early last year, we used a Sika Pro Select. It was a cooler day and it was misting, or no, it had rained the day before. The ground was wet, and so when the post was originally set that day, it was tight in the hole. Everything was beautiful. We set it on a Friday, came back on Monday, and that was the loosest post you'd ever seen in your life because that foam shrank. Whether it was and talking to Sika, they say, well, it was probably not the optimal temperature, and ground moisture content was probably too high. So there's a lot of variables with the Sika. Now
you can't run a business like that. You just can't.
You can't, because, and that was my point, was that if we're talking about a fencing contractor and I have to wait till ideal conditions to use the product, it's not usable.
Yeah.
Now the second product I used, and to be fair to Sika, in last week's video, the Sika actually performed okay. The temperature was nice though. It hadn't rained in a while. The Sika performed okay. The second product we used was called Post Lock. And the Post Lock product, I started doing a lot of research into this post foam after the Sika, initial Sika testing. So the manufacturers of the Post Lock also manufacture the post foam for utility poles. It's like 80% of the market these folks supply for. So it's the same technology, it's the same product that's used in telephone poles on a smaller scale.
What's the name of that company? Do you remember?
No, so Post Lock is the brand of foam that I used. I don't remember their parent company.
Okay.
It's one of these situations where the parent company has several brands that do different things in the same field. I don't remember the parent company. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. The one thing that I have heard, I don't know if all of them are this, but a lot of companies that use all foam, they still put concrete on their gates and ends and corners.
Yeah, I could see that. So, I don't know. It's going to take a lot of trust, right? It's going to take a lot of trust to try to move to an all foam installation. My foreman said the same thing when we were testing this. He's like, "Well, that's fine, but I'm still setting my gate posts in concrete."
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. Because we could use quick setting Quickcrete. We 2 bags of it, probably 3 bags of it. Honestly, get it to 120 pounds because they come in 40-pound bags here for whatever reason. Use that, and then it takes 2 hours for it to set up. So by the time you're building out all your fence, your posts are set up. Now the difference between Sika and Post Lock that I found, Sika you still have to wait 2 hours to build on it. The Post Lock you can build in 15 minutes. It said 15 to 20 minutes. So where I see it shining, Caleb, is in the event of a repair or replacing 1 or 2 posts that you don't want to wait around for 2 hours for these things to cure up. Use some of the post foam, give it 20 minutes. Now you're ready to nail it, move on.
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of guys can do the repair and then pour the concrete last and eyeball it and walk away.
That's right. So they each have their point. They each have their place. Wade Tackney is looking forward to the training in Tennessee. Wade, I can't wait to meet you.
What are you most looking forward to, Wade? What's the number one thing, if you could just walk away with one golden nugget, what area of the world or industry would it be in?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Absolutely. What would you love to learn? That's what I'm trying to get a good firm grasp on, Caleb, too. And I'll probably shoot a video to put it in your group, is asking guys in terms of marketing, like how can I be of most value to you? What would you like to learn, in the time that we have allotted, what can I teach you that will be the most helpful? I particularly like video. I'm a video guy. I think video is the way to go in terms of marketing because it lets people interact with you on what feels like a personal level. So Caleb and I have obviously met in person, but prior to that first time meeting, I still felt like I knew Caleb because I watched all of his videos, and he would FaceTime. I could FaceTime in with him and show him kind of what I was saying, get some tips and tricks from him. Video is powerful for creating personal connections. So I'm going to be talking about that. That's what I like talking. That's what I'm passionate about, obviously. But yeah, I'd like to know, Wade, to Caleb's question is, what in general would you like to learn most? Me personally, my question is, what would you like to learn most about marketing specifically? How could I be of most value to you?
Well, I'm going to throw one in here and ask you, Joe.
Yeah.
I would like to hear about, I feel like a big change is coming in the world of marketing. I feel like the things that may have worked in the past may work to a lesser degree or maybe not at all in the future. So I'm really curious to see what the next 36 months hold for marketing purposes. I think things are shifting, and they may not shift, but I think they're definitely shifting. And Grant Cardone, I was watching a training video for him today, and he was basically talking about websites are almost dead now. Everybody's just doing landing pages, and
Sure.
the landing pages produce so much more than a whole website, especially if you're on a budget, because a website, you can spend $50,000, $100,000 on a website. You can drag and drop a landing page in 15 minutes for free.
Yep.
And so I think things are going to shift, and I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to shift to.
I think you're right. Here's the thing: is the reason I harp on video, but I don't say specifically where the video goes, is I think you'll be able to use video wherever the marketing landscape shifts to. Facebook is still incredibly strong. YouTube obviously is strong. YouTube is owned by Google, so YouTube is not going away. Google will not let it go away. Google is the number one search engine. The number two search engine is YouTube.
Yep, I agree.
So I think this is still incredibly powerful. I like Facebook for branding. I don't know that I like Facebook as much for direct sales. I don't think that's where people go to buy things. As far as services, you can do targeted ads on Marketplace, but I haven't found much success there. I
agree with you.
I like Google ads in terms of direct response, because people are actively Googling what they want to buy. Fence company in my area, fence company near me is the number one search term for fence companies. Now, that search term is expensive because everyone wants to buy it. So you got to get creative with it. So maybe it's wood fence near me, or maybe it's cedar fence, or you got to kind of do a little bit of research there. But Google is great for intent-based purchasing.
Yeah, the way I like to think of it is, Google, you're going to the hot dog shop to get a hot dog.
Yep.
Facebook, you're driving down the interstate and you see a sign for a hot dog shop and you think, hey, I'd like to have a hot dog.
Yeah, I should eat there someday.
Yeah, I should eat there someday. And that's kind of the way it is. I always felt that the leads were stronger from Google. If they call you from Google, they're ready to, they need you. If you're on Facebook, you just interrupted them, and they thought, oh, I need to do that.
Agreed. And so when we're talking about Google's ads specifically, when you search Google, the first thing you get is the ads, and then you get video, and then you get the organic return searches, or the organic results. So if you could do video and make that video relevant to the search terms, then it will end up right under the paid traffic for free.
Yep.
That's kind of where we're at.
We need to add that for our service businesses, to start adding those geographic key terms, keywords in our videos. Where are you putting those? Are you putting them in your title, or are you putting them in your description?
Probably description. Description. You want to keep the titles fairly short. We're playing with that on YouTube right now, on whether length matters, and it seems like the shorter the description, or the shorter the title, the better. And then you can build out a lengthy description, and so that when someone's scrolling, they just see a quick hit title, they're like, "Yep, that's the one I want." So, if when we're talking about Ozark Fence for the fence installation, it would be new cedar fence in, Emerald Point, which is a nice neighborhood in here in our area that we like to build fence in. New cedar fence in Emerald Point, or new cedar fence, and we obviously build a lot of cedar fence. Or if we're building vinyl, it'd be beautiful vinyl fence in Arlington Heights, or it would be, what I mean, that sort of thing. That way, when someone's searching, the Arlington Heights kind of geolocates that post. So when someone types in near me, Google knows where they are, and Google knows where Arlington Heights is. So Google can probably put one and one together and come up with two. Things like that.
I agree.
So here's Well, let us go through some questions because I'm getting ready to go somewhere with this topic that I really get passionate about, and I know I'll forget about comments for a little while. So Wade Tagney, so Wade's been with us for quite a while. I remember talking about this. My father's son fence company. I like that name so much. So he's looking forward to talking to you, Caleb. You can't think of anyone in his market that stains fences.
Well, there's 3 ways he can do it. He can refer somebody, he can do it himself, or he can sub somebody out. So
yeah,
we'll figure it out and make it
so
happen.
Wade, it sounds like you're going to be at the training, and I think that's an incredibly good idea.
What market, Wade? What city? What state?
Yeah, what area are you in, Wade? I know I'm sorry guys, but I get a lot of you confused. I want to say he's kind of over in your area, maybe Kentucky, but I'm not sold on that. All right, Boo Boo, we'd ask Boo Boo what his company name says. No company, just finished his MBA. Congratulations. And really interested in the industry. Might start one so my kids have good character building work as they get older. That's generally how everyone gets involved with the fencing trade. Not necessarily creating one, but being the kid that gets sucked into it. But that's
how they got me. That's how they got Mr. Fence. That's how they got you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, just everyone you talk to. My story, and Kale, I think yours is similar. My story was, I think it was summer of 6th grade. You know, the first day of summer, all year long, all through the school year, you're making plans with your buddies, what you're going to do for summer, what you're going to do for summer. And it's usually ride the bike all the way to the gas station, which was off limits, but still adventurous. Ride your bikes up to the gas station, and we're going to go to the creek, and anyway, we had plans. Well, first morning of summer, I get woken up. My dad says, all right, get up, get your clothes on. You're coming to work. I'm like, it's not even light outside. The sun's not even up yet. It's way too early to be up. And I've got plans with my friends. Like, well, plans just changed. Don't worry about your friends. They'll be here after work. Let's go. And that was how my fencing career started.
Sounds just exactly like mine.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common. So here's the thing: is it does build good character. I don't know. So here's a pretty common thread though in fence company owners. I don't know that I'm going to have my kids be super involved in it. When I'm talking to other fence company owners now, Sean is obviously not on board with this. I think every one of Sean's boys work for him. I don't know. I don't know that I will. Am I grateful for it? I absolutely am. But in the back of my mind, there's a lot of what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Does that make sense? It's Ozark Fence and building fence is all I've ever known. It's my only primary job. I took on some secondary jobs, through school and stuff like that. But for primary jobs, it's just what I know. I don't know what else is out there. So there's always those things.
Same with me. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think it's good to get them involved in the business, to let them to learn some work ethic and to be around other good male role models if it's a son, and around other women role models if it's your daughters. But as far as forcing them into the business, this is what you're going to do. No, I don't think so. I think that's a decision the child's got to make.
I think so too. I mean, at a certain age, the conversation needs to be, you're going to do something. Like, you're not sitting at home, but here's some options. Would I love for you to come work for me? I absolutely would. But here's a few other options for you as well. Because I know my dad and I's relationship right now is great. Like, it's probably the best it's ever been. But I know our relationship wasn't great growing up in the business. Because any of the fights and disagreements that start at work, they come right on home. They get hashed out over the dinner table in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But they get hashed out because you've had a half-hour drive home to think and regroup and create whole new arguments in your head.
That's the way it goes. But I think though, the character, the thing that I've noticed in the fence business, there's a lot of good people in it, and it's hard work. It's like roofing. There's not many jobs, I think, in the world that is hard as building fence, particularly in Tennessee, where every other hole's solid blue limestone. Or there we go. Start talking about the blue rock. But but it's hard work, man. I remember as a kid, there'd be guys that would quit. They'd be grown men crying, and it's tough. And I think that gave me, it gave me the ability to, well, I'll tell you like this. My dad used to say this saying. He would say, "It's got to be done."
Yeah, it's just got to get done.
Dadgummit. I hated that when I was a kid, but now as an adult, I go, well, it's got to be done. Let's just do it.
That's right. Yeah, we've got a task. It has to be completed.
I think that's, and I think everybody in my office that's overhearing this, I may wait till the last minute to do some things.
That's right.
But that I work best under those conditions. So
absolutely. All right, we're catching up with some comments here. Rowdy Bowdy thinks that the string line is sacred. I agree.
Mhm.
Sometimes you gotta trust your string. How's the saying go? Trust but verify. You gotta make sure it's right. So this is an interesting comment. Marcus says you need some flex paste for the dip tank. So that's on our mind. So I also do rental houses. I have a partner in that, and he does construction. He's exterior construction. He said there's a sealant that they use for like foundation repair. It's a flexible but super strong sealant, and then zip tape over it. So zip tape's what they'll use.
You know what I would do, Joe?
What's that?
I would cut the back off of that tank and cock it back at that angle, and then I'd get flat sheet metal, stainless or just galvanized, and just lap it right over into the tank. There's no joint there to ever have to worry about. No nothing.
Yeah.
Let it run right behind your step. That's a guaranteed surefire way to get it done, and you'll never have to worry about it. I don't like the idea of relying on anything that says flex or anything that says sealant or paste, because what are you going to clean that tank with?
Yeah, mineral spirits. Yeah,
with mineral spirits, it could break it down. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, you're right.
If you just make it to where there's no way it can leak, that's what I would do.
Kenny Dugan, Stainman's weighing in. Dip tank, cattle trough from Tractor Supply or wooden form like Caleb mentioned.
The worst thing about dip tanks that leak are they always leak on the day you get an inspection.
Absolutely. Yeah, or when you're behind.
Yep.
All right. So Wade weighed in. Oh, I just scrolled right past it. So Wade's looking for install tips and tricks and staining info. Perfect.
Yeah, man. Kenny Dugan, who just talked, he is our number one fence staining instructor. He's going to be there. And so if you see Kenny, you got to, like I said last night, buy him a steak and a beer. But
yeah,
Kenny can share a whole lot of information. We all can. And tips and tricks, I guess he's talking about probably install tips and tricks for building fence.
Yeah,
and staining info. Yeah, I think as one of the things I'm really going to focus on for this particular class is, in a world where we have a steel shortage and a lumber shortage, we really need to take care of what's already there. And so for the average fence company, if you've been in business, Joe, for how many years? For 50, 60, 70 years?
64 years, 65 years.
You've got a pretty good backlog of customers you could call on. If you could never get another new customer, you could definitely call on those old ones. And everybody's got those customer lists. So we can actually do very well in business by restoring old things and maintaining what you've already built. So
we did when we felt comfortable and completely proficient at staining, we sent a letter out to your point, Caleb, to our existing customer list that we have built wood fence for ever. Every wood fence we've ever built, within our records. We don't have records back to 1955. We sent a letter out just saying, hey, just so you know, we get a lot of calls for this. We do it. We also do it in the same professional manner that we built your fence in. If you'd like a price, let us know. We did $73,000 off that letter. One letter.
Was that a direct mail postcard?
It was a letter, a direct mail letter. Wasn't a postcard. Let's come back around to postcards. I have a thought on postcards. It was a long form letter that was literally it was on our letterhead. I signed it in orange ink at the bottom. And it basically just said, hey, you're receiving this letter because because sometime, or what, basically said, because in the past we built a wood fence for you. We get a lot of call for keeping your wood fence nice longer, or maybe restoring the beautiful look of your wood fence. We want to let you know that is a service we offer, and we'd love to give you a price on that. For more information or to schedule a consultation, please give us a call at blank. Yeah, like $73,000 off that letter. So
what did you spend on the letter? Do you know?
Maybe a couple $100.
Okay.
I mean, realistically, postage is 30 or 40 some odd cents of postage. So I don't know, call it maybe $1,000. And I think that is being incredibly expensive.
Well, and that's the thing, you when you do marketing, it's kind of like a gamble, right?
It absolutely is.
The other day we went and drove by a fence that was 7,500 feet that we stained back in 2017. And I just did a drive-by. We washed it and we stained it with chestnut. And I just did a drive-by and I said, hey, it's time to go ahead and do a maintenance coat. And I just remembered, this lady. She was a very wealthy woman in our community. And she called and she said, well, I was looking at over my granddaughter's shoulder on her cell phone, and we were on Facebook, and I saw me with my arm standing up on a 4-rail black fence talking about how we stain fences. And she called, and I remember I spent $100. I said, I'm gonna spend $100 on this ad, see what happens. Spent $100 on it, and it was $36,000 project. So going out on a limb sometimes works out. More, yep. I think more times than not, it does work to your favor, because even when it doesn't work, you learned, hey, don't do that again.
Well, that's right, and you improve on it, and that's So bringing this back around, Wade, install tips and tricks for fence. I think you're going to get a lot of good information from Sean on Friday for staining tips and tricks. Caleb's got a great lineup of guys that's going to teach you quite a lot on Thursday.
Well, you want to go over a kind of a. We actually spent probably an hour today going over the schedule and kind of what we're doing. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's catch up on comments really quick, because I know some people want to hear their shout outs. Carriere, hope you're doing super well. Good to hear from you. Divine Fence, Noah with Divine Fence. He's going to be there 25th, 26th. Looking forward to meeting more of the Fence fam. Love to hear that. Boo Boo agrees. Marketing is always changing. I mean, once you get settled into one rut, it's over. I mean, you have to diversify. You can't put all your eggs in one basket and all the other cliche sayings. You always have to be kind of taking the pulse of your marketing and figuring out what's working and what's not. Wade Technology is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I was way off. That's nowhere near Kentucky. I apologize. Let's see. So Makito mentioned quick setting concrete. What are your opinions on Sacrete Maximizer? When you use round post, did you pour concrete, then insert the post, or post, then pour concrete? So it doesn't really get cold enough here to use Maximizer. We typically just use the Quick Set Quickcrete. It's a red bag. Guys in the northern climates use Maximizer to heat that up a little bit on really cold climates, but we just use Quick Set Quickcrete right out of the bag. In terms of the post, typically what we would do is we would have the post in the hole, and we'd lift the post up and float it, so to speak. So that way we know it's at depth. We know if you pour the concrete in your hole and then you install the post, you're never really sure exactly how deep it is. If we put the post all the way in the hole, pour the concrete, lift it up about 6 inches, we know that it's to depth, but it has about 6 inches of concrete underneath of it. Jason Hensley, what is up? He's in Central Oklahoma, listening to you guys on my drive home from teaching. I love what you have learned from me. I love what I have learned from you guys. Keep it up. Jason, thank you. Appreciate it. Tell you what, teachers have all my respect. I do not have the patience to be a teacher. I think that's incredible. All right. Oh, yeah. Marcus is also in West Minneapolis. So we have two folks from Minneapolis here. Oh, and then a fellow Missourian, Josh Bundy. What is up? Josh is up in St. Joseph, Missouri, which is up just north of Kansas City. What is up, Josh? As you may know, I'm down in Southwest Missouri, specifically right in Springfield. All right, I think we're caught up on the comments. If you guys have questions, comments about fencing and staying, business in general, drop in the comments below. But now this is the part where I'm really excited to talk about, because this is something I haven't heard of either, or haven't heard about yet either. So Caleb, you're saying you have the scheduling somewhat set for the Staining University and Fence Installation School?
Yeah, well, we wrote it up earlier, and I did not bring that paper in here with me, but I just wrote down the best of my recollection what we decided. So the last one, we had too much for one day, and this time it's a 2-day event.
Yeah.
So it's going to start out, early in the morning on Thursday. We're going to get together. Well, let's back up. Wednesday night, I'm sure something's going to happen Wednesday night. We don't know. It won't get too crazy on Wednesday night, but we're all going to get together. Thursday morning, we're going to start it up. We're going to have breakfast, probably coffee, donuts, stuff like that. We've got somebody coming in and providing a breakfast. And then we're going to talk, and we'll just call it Staining Business 101. Before that, we'll probably do some introductions, I'm sure. But Staining Business 101, it's, I just pulled that name out of the thin air. But we're just going to talk about the business, how to get in it, the different ways to get in it, some of the tools you might need, a quick note or two about numbers and things like that, and we'll come back to numbers later. But just a 30,000-foot view of the staining business, and then we're gonna head outside and we're gonna restore some wood. And so what that means is we're going to clean a fence. We're probably going to clean a deck. We're going to use a bunch of different cleaners that we make or are also readily available on the market. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to show it. And everybody that's there is going to get to, if they want to, they're going to get a chance to put the chemical on, to use the chemical, to spray it off for the power washer, to brighten it. All of those things, you're going to get to learn about all these secret chemicals you've heard about or you've never heard about. Sure. And then, and all through this that I'm not mentioning, we're going to have really expert people coming in and working with this. It's not just going to be one guy like me out here doing this. So I think Jeff Konopak and probably Kenny Dugan will probably weigh in pretty heavy on those, but I'm going to take that one. So I'll be teaching that one as kind of the main instructor, the restoration. Then we're going to come inside and we're going to hear from Matt Warner, my salesman. We're going to hear a keynote speech from them. And Matt is really a magical guy. And he's really done well with the culture in his business. And that's when I invited him out, I said, Matt, I want to hear about culture and how guys can really improve the culture in their business. So that's what he's going to talk about. Then we're going to have lunch. And you're going to notice this is a slower pace schedule than what we did at the last one. And then after lunch, if you remember that deck that we restored, that we power washed and stripped all the way down. So after lunch, we're going to split up. And the guys who want to go put the hands on and touch things, they're going to go outside. And then the guys that want to come in and learn about the marketing and things like that, that's where they're going to come and sit and talk to you. So after lunch, we got Joe Everest doing the marketing talk. And then Jeff and a couple other guys, Kenny Dugan, going to show how to get rid of, once you clean a deck and you restore it, there's fuzz. You get the fuzz and things like that. We're going to talk about how to get rid of the fuzz, all the different tools of the trade in doing that. And we're going to prep this deck. We're going to sand it down. And it's going to be many hands, make light work, and we'll show how that's done. Then once that's finished, we're going to come in and we're going to do some Q&A. And scattered in between this stuff and in between things, we're going to have like the Worcester Brush Company, their American-made brush company. We're going to have Graco or Titan sprayers. They're neck and neck. We're going to see who the sponsor is. And we got some others. My salesman's a sponsor. But they're all going to get their time, and they're going to have booths set up. So if you want to walk around and mingle, you can do that as well. And then on that night, we're hoping to, like I said, rent the honky tonk out right down the road and have a great time, drinks, finger foods, and just get to know one another and talk and things like that. And Friday morning, we're going to kick it off with Mr. Fence. I don't know what he's going to talk about. He's going to talk about all the things that he's learned along the way. He's going to give us a nice, probably an hour-long talk. And then after that, we're going to split. And one side of the room is going to go with Mr. Fence, and they're going to go build some fence. And we assume most fence guys aren't really interested in decking. So the other half of the class, the power washers, the stainers, they're going to go out. And we're going to prep. When I say prep, we're going to mask and we're going to stain that deck. So they're actually going to stain a real deck for the World War II veterans building. Let's see what happens after that. Then we're going to come in, probably eat a bite for lunch, because that'll take a little while. And Mr. Fence is going to build a wood privacy fence. We're going to talk about that, build a wood privacy fence, go over some tools. And after lunch, we're going to go stain that fence. And that's where Kenny Dugan's going to come in. He's going to talk about all these techniques on staining fences, tools. We're going to go over the pumps and things that we use. Let's see what else. And then, got to look at my notes here. Fence school, then lunch. fence staining, and then probably end it again with another Q&A session. I mean, pretty simple. That sounds like not very much, but it's going to be jam-packed.
Yeah, it'll be action-packed for sure.
Joe, you're catching the yawns that I've got. We've both got babies at home, and
I do. I do. Yeah, it's she's 1 month old today. So
congratulations.
Yeah, which means sleep is not often on the full menu.
That's all right. That's all right. But yeah, we're trying to slow things down and get more mingle time too, because it's important to do that. And when we want to make sure that anybody that wants to learn anything's got the chance to go do it. So
Absolutely.
I think to the best of our ability, we'll be able to achieve that this year.
I'm excited. I really am, Kale. I've said that from the beginning. You know, I would be excited if I wasn't speaking at this, just to show up and learn and be a sponge of all the knowledge. I mean, the guys that are going to be walking around this event are titans in the industry, right?
Oh yeah.
So just to be around those people, you know, there's a saying that, you know, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
You know, the guys and gals that will be walking around this event, I mean, if you surround yourself by these folks, I mean, the only way is up.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of that, I'm going to switch gears. You remember at the Contractor Sales Academy, you were there with Andy Bailey, and he made all the grown men cry in the room?
Yes.
Remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I finally got get to go tomorrow for a lunch interview meeting with the entrepreneur organization here in Nashville.
Very good.
So yeah, I know you didn't have one close to you. It was
no, it's 3 hours away is the closest one.
But ours is supposed to be the best in the country. And I'm finally, how long has that been? A year and a half?
Yeah.
Finally got my foot in the door and get to go check that out. And so, but you're right. That's why I'm joining that, because you get around a bunch of people that are way more successful and smarter than me, then maybe they'll reach down and pull me up.
Well, that's the thing is, I mean, and you're going to be surrounding yourself with people that have the same goal, and that is growth and scaling and building a business, right? You know, there's some groups out there that's just not the goal. The goal is, you know, networking, but very loosely networking. It's more just kind of getting to know people. Where, you know, when I go to a group, I like to be intentional about what I'm there for.
Yeah.
Like, I am here to learn, and I am here to, like I said, just be a sponge and soak up all the experience and knowledge that's here, and try to, you know, implement that in my business. You know, so Cale, where my mind keeps going back to is after university last year, we all hung out at your place. Now, granted, I showed up late, and that is absolutely my fault. Nashville got the best of me the night before, but that is probably the best. What was 2 or 3 hours is how long we spent. Just kind of, we just had, you know, chairs in a circle, and we were just bouncing off ideas. And hey, here's something I'm seeing in my business. Have you seen it? And if so, what did you do? How did you do it?
Yeah.
That's probably some of the best time, you know, best 3 hours I may have spent that year in general, was just sitting around and asking the what ifs and what should I do and what did you do? Any group that can take that and scale that, I mean,
well, that's what we're trying to do. We want more of that, because I've been to a lot of events, and that, you know, the event itself's great, but it's like me and you and Tim Milner choking to death in the cigar bar dying, but we're sitting there holding on to every word he was saying, because the guy's a genius.
Absolutely.
You know, listening to him, and he's helping us, and he wants to help us. So it's our duty and responsibility to take advantage of that, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, so that's what we want to create. We don't want to just bring people here that, I guess the best way to look at it is inspiration. I feel like our business, we make fence and deck stains and cleaning chemicals and all this, but actually that's not what we do. What we do is we train people to become better and be more successful, to help their families grow. And the way we support that mission is by making fence stains. So support us and buy our stains. You know, that's kind of the way that I feel about it. And I think that whole message is getting pretty strong here at our team. And I think hopefully we'll change some lives, you know, in whatever small way we can do.
That's right. That's right. And you are. I mean, because you had several members of your team, you know, in that circle when you're sitting around, and you could hear when they talk and the questions they asked, I could tell personally that you're instilling that in them, that, passion to, just better themselves, and passion for them to be better and help the company as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just there, I don't want to go into specifics. It was personal conversations, but you could tell that everyone there had that in mind, is how could they be better and how can they help the people that are around them more?
Well, everybody's got their own ship that they're on or building or whatever, and just happens to be ours. So we might as well give it our best shot, right?
That's right.
Yeah. You got any more questions coming up?
I don't see any. Lamar, apparently we are big in Minneapolis. Lamar's the third person from Minneapolis. So welcome in the frigid north. So actually I've got a couple cousins up in Minneapolis with their kiddos right now. So apparently we're missing out. We need to be in Minneapolis. I say that. We do not need to be in Minneapolis in the wintertime, but maybe in the summertime. They build tunnels between buildings so that they don't have to go outside.
How is Minneapolis doing it? Is he right downtown, or is Minneapolis was on the news a while back. I don't know if things are still going crazy up there. Is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder, because you hear so many things on TV or whatever, and you don't know what's true. Obviously, Lamar's still doing great down there, it sounds like. So hopefully, I wonder what that's another thing I'm very interested in, and we do our podcast, and that's something I think I want to start bringing on is, like, everybody tell us how the market's going where you are. Is the phone ringing? Sure. What's happening? It'd be real cool if we could get a big 30,000 foot view of the country and see how these markets are going. Because it's good to hear that, oh, they're doing great. My phone's not ringing. Well, it's probably my fault. So what can I do to fix that? It's not the economy.
Sure.
It's my own personal economy,
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know how to do it. What I'd like to do is have some real honest conversations too about market conditions. Because I feel like when you ask guys, hey, how are things in your market? The answer generally is, oh, they're on fire. It's the best it's ever been. I'm so busy. I'm booked out for 6 months. But then later on, you learn that that's maybe not accurate.
Well, Joe, we get this a lot in the staining business. You call on guys and obviously we want to say, hey, I don't know what stain you're using, but I think you should really take a look at ours and give it a shot. And when you get a lot of pushback, and I understand it's an uncomfortable thing to swap stain brands, but sure. I'll never forget, I talked to this one particular guy. He used a particular brand of stain, and I asked him about how he liked it, or we were trying to make the switch with him. And he just, every time, man, I'm using the best stuff on the market. I'm never going to change. There's nothing I can do to change. Sure. There's nothing you can do to make me change. And I'm a door knocker. I'll knock on his door once a week. So I think maybe 6 or 8 months in, finally one day he called me and he said, I've had it. This stain is junk. I'm so sick of this and that and this and that. Yeah. The problem was pride. It was a little bit of pride. You don't want to say that man, I'm having trouble. But I think that those are the boundaries we got to break down and say, you know what, man? Because that's what you notice when you get around a room full of super high performers. They'll be the first one to tell you. They'll go, hey, our shipping department is having a ton of problems. We messed up 4 orders last week. What are you doing, man? Can I talk to your shipping manager? Because they're on fire at your place. And when you get those conversations, it helps you grow for sure.
You're right. And I think you're absolutely right that pride plays a very large, if not a complete role in that. No one ever, not no one, but people rarely want to, with strangers, be completely forthcoming, about, deficiencies or just, flaws or anything like that. But, the sooner we can get past that and have real conversations, the better the group as a whole is.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that was part of that. When we were sitting in your office, right, almost right where you're sitting now, was that we were all able to have just very real and open conversations. No one there was a competitor. No one there was, everyone there was just able to have open and honest conversations. And like I said, I don't know how to do it, but if we could do that at scale, I think everyone would be better for it.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget. I said, well, I ordered these raw materials, and you said, wait a minute, what did you say? I said, well, I ordered the raw materials for this stain or whatever. And you were like, what? And you looked over at my production manager and like, why is he ordering the raw materials? And he was like, I don't know. And I said, well, I've always ordered them. I no longer order the raw materials, and now I've got time to spend time with you and to do other things.
Yeah.
And so when you let your guard down and let people come in and offer that advice to you, it helps. It definitely does, because my world's changed just since then.
Yeah, I agree, and it goes both ways, right? I also felt comfortable enough to ask that question, right? That I knew there wasn't going to be pushback or wasn't going to be an uncomfortable scenario. To say, wait a minute, why are you doing that? Doesn't he do that? I think he should do the orders then. But I mean, and it takes different perspectives too. It takes another set of eyes and another perspective that doesn't. Here's the problem, or here's a common problem in a lot of businesses is that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
Right. Is you almost need to have a different person come in that doesn't know anything about how it's always done to ask those questions and not assume that that's the best way of doing it.
Well, you're right, because how do most of us start these businesses? We start them, me, myself, and I, and you have to do everything. And sometimes it's hard just to let go of the telephone. I can't answer the phone anymore, and that goes all the way to the top. I think no matter how big your company gets, there's always things you just don't want to let go because you're not comfortable. But I let go of bidding all the jobs. Mandy over here, she bids jobs better than I do now. She's selling her tail off. So it's a great thing.
It's funny. We had an administrative assistant years ago that she would the role was with the mail. She would just bring me the mail, put it on my desk until one day she was like, "Why are you opening the mail?" Like I like to see what's in the mail. She's like, "Okay, but would it make sense for me to weed through the junk and have me put what seems relevant on your desk?" Yeah, it does probably make more sense than me opening all the mail. But that's just what I'd always done. Yeah. Right? That was our process. And I find myself taking processes back sometimes because I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, that's not how I did it. And I think the way I did it is the best way. So I'll just do that. Instead of rather just letting the person just perform the task and probably do it better because it's not my way, because it's a way that they had come up with.
Yep.
All right. Boo-Boo's got a couple questions. Says, do y'all get much government contract work or mostly private and residential? So we as a fence company, I feel odd just referring to him or her as Boo-Boo, but we're private. We don't. Well, I say so. Government contract. I mean, we don't contract directly like with the United States government. We do a little bit for our state highway department. We do a little bit for them. Our city government. We do things for the different city municipalities. So I guess technically that would be government contract work, but mostly what we do is private. I find that there's less hoops to jump through with private work rather than government contract work.
That's true.
Caleb, what do you think?
Well, most of our work's private and residential. We kind of swapped over to hand sanitizer at the beginning of COVID back last year, and we sold a lot of stuff to the government there, like the U.S. Postal Service. And we are actually almost finished. We're finished. We just got to tweak some things on our GSA work. So, we've got the post saver sleeve, but we got a pole saver sleeve too. And that's a 50-year warranty it's a sleeve that goes on a power pole, a utility pole, and it's got RFID tracking in it, and it's a 50-year anti-rot warranty. So the pole won't rot for 50 years guaranteed, and it's low cost, and it's a pretty impressive thing. But we plan to sell, a couple $1 billion of those to the Department of Energy because it just makes sense. So hopefully, maybe this time next year we can talk about the government work that we're doing. But we're pursuing that. And if there's any stain contracts, like I know up at Fort Campbell. I remember not too long ago, they built 88,000 linear feet of 8-foot shadow box fencing. Sounds really fun to stain, right? But if we could start getting contracts like that, we would definitely travel for those. And sure. I think it'd be good. I think we did pre-stain an Air Force Base fence. It was like 8,000 linear feet of walnut standard privacy on steel post. And we did the runners and the pickets. And that was in an Air Force Base. So interested to see what we can get out of that. I'm new to that. So if anybody I know my friend went in Whitcomb over in Texas or Oklahoma. He does some of that. Went in. You've seen him. He did that in the military.
Okay.
He specialized in GSA work. So we're probably going to consult with in and hopefully we can work that out, because there's a lot of guys doing a lot of things with the government and fencing industry, and maybe we can transition that into the staining industry too.
Yeah, and talking about shadow box fence brings back another perk of pre-staining, is that you don't have to stain shadow box fence. Shadow box, it takes twice as long and it takes twice as much product.
No, you're wrong, Joe. It takes twice as much product and 3 times as long.
That's probably right. Shadow box fence, I mean, no one enjoys it either. Like, there is no one that's like, I love staining shadow box fence, just because it's a nightmare to get all the nooks and crannies, to do it right, get all the nooks and crannies, make sure everything's evenly coated. Nightmare. It would be interesting for someone to, on that staining contract, before the fence is built, to say, hey, I would like to show you a breakdown on the cost of pre-staining this fence versus staining this fence on site. And when they see that the cost is triple, they go, maybe this pre-staining thing's the way to go.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is we'll see how it goes. You got to know the right people to get that. You got to get so far ahead of the curve to do that. But I think that's the goal, is to do stuff like that. But I know you can make a great living doing that, and those people need service too. So there's a lot of set aside for small businesses. There's a lot of set aside for women-owned small businesses. And it might just be something, especially if you live somewhere where there's a lot of government facilities. I know Huntsville's growing like crazy right now. If you're working in some of those areas, it might be worth your while to look into that.
Absolutely. And you need to make sure your business is set up for it. And what I mean is, doing work under government contracts usually different than doing work in private sector. Just because there's more hoops to jump through, right? We did some fence up at Fort Leonard Wood, which is it's an Army base near here, about an hour and a half away. Anyway, they were redoing on-base housing fences, and so we got a contract. It was kind of an oddball deal. There's usually a general contractor that has the overall contract, and then they sub it out to whomever. So we didn't have the government contract. We had a private contract on a government facility, but you want to talk about jumping through hoops. For each fence, we had to have the utilities located, which that's fine. But then we had to take it through at least 4 or 5 different Army offices, different people and the basically planning and zoning, general or colonel. And then you had facilities, and you had to take it through 5 different people to get this thing signed. And you could do it one of 2 ways. You could submit it to one general clearinghouse, and then they would send it around the horn, but that takes like a week. Or you could walk it around yourself, and that takes like 2 full days, just waiting for this colonel to be in or that colonel to be in to see it and sign it. And literally it was, you would put it in front of them, and they would say, okay, do you foresee any changes to this? No. Does this meet our standards? Yes. Approved. Click. And that was literally it. It was maddening. So that would be a word of caution, is just make sure you know what all's involved in the process and make sure you're set up for it.
Yeah. And I can tell you the supply side there's still hoops to jump through, but I don't think near as much.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that's why we're looking on the supply side, hopefully, mostly. But
I got a question. You said something that kind of made my ears perk up. So the Postmaster, or not the Postmaster, the Post Saver 2, you said it had RFID.
Oh yeah.
What's the application?
Well, Joe, I used to be a fireman, and if a telephone, you go to a car accident and a car hits a telephone pole, and that pole is broken in half, you got to go find the number to report, because it's our responsibility as a fireman to call the it's pole number J-102-6. And if you drove right up to the fire engine's got an RFID reader, and as soon as you pull up to the scene, it's already popping up on their screen, and it's all automatically sending word back to the utility company. Or the utility company is doing testing on those poles every year and a half, something like that.
Yep.
Well, with the sleeve, they don't have to do the testing, but maybe every 5 years, and all the test data can be kept right on the RFID. So when they run up, they do their test, it automatically downloads onto their system. And so, yeah, the RFID is going to be huge. It's going to be so big. It's going to be an industry changer. We just got to get the word out.
I like that. Yeah, because you can save the service and maintenance history right there.
Oh, yeah. And no longer do they have to even put tags on the poles. Because what do people do? They cover them up, they take them off, tags disappear. Now we've got an all new way to track poles, and we got to start thinking long term because we got a 50-year warranty. It's actually probably going to last 100 years. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very good. We need to keep us up to date on that. That's very
well,
I think that's very interesting.
In the utility industry, give us a shout.
So is it similar technology to the standard post saver? Yeah,
but it's like the difference between a Honda Civic and a dump truck. I mean, the pole saver is just it's white. It's beautiful, like a white gray color. It shows all the directions on it. It's really cool. It's really a cool product. It's big. It's thick. It's probably thicker than like a commercial heavy duty truck tire tube.
Okay.
And it melts on the same way. We've done tons of testing. It's used all over the world. Just the U.S. is slow to adopt new technology. So, but yeah, I think for, when tax dollars come into play, a lot of these people want to push back and say, oh, well, our poles last 15 years. I'm talking about a 50-year guarantee, and I'm talking about RFID tracking, and I'm talking about less money spent in inspections. So, it's a no-brainer, and it's going to definitely save the average co-op member money. It's going to save the average taxpayer money. So it just makes sense to move that direction. It's better than steel. It's better than composites, and it works.
It's got to save quite a bit of money because you see utility companies moving to like a steel or a carbon fiber. What looks like carbon fiber, probably isn't it?
The problem is that the steel, it rusts and it really corrodes badly. The concrete ones, they really break down over time, and the new composite stuff is just not got the strength. They don't hold up. And tops of them off,
and steel. I mean, they have to be running into the same issues that we're seeing on the fence side, where you've got supply issues. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that we didn't even talk about is when your husband, if you're a woman who's married to a lineman, when he climbs up a pole, you want him to come home safe. And when you climb a pole that's rotten in the ground, it's definitely led to some deaths. You don't hear about these, but they happen. They're kind of hushed and kept quiet, but they do happen. Just maybe 2 blocks up the road from us, we showed it to Middle Tennessee Electric membership. We did a couple of their polls for them, and all their people loved them. The linemen loved them, but the higher ups, they just wouldn't go for it. They said, we never have polls that have problems. And not 2 blocks from our house, a pole, they just pulled a new line to a new building they're going to build, and that pole just fell right over. It was rotten, completely off of the ground. And if a lineman had climbed that pole for any reason, it could have come crashing down.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure as soon as they said that, the linemen were like, oh, no, we do have problems. You just don't talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've seen lots of them. We've gone around and poked around and just kind of moved the dirt back around poles. It's a big problem, even with CCA-treated poles. And another thing is that sleeve, even if you really do a good job of treating a pole, when it gets wet and dry, what happens? That leaches out into the ground. So this sleeve goes around it, and it holds that treatment in, so the treatment stays in where it's supposed to go. And this barrier keeps water, moisture, and bugs, anything out of there. So it's good for the environment.
Let's talk about the Post Saver product, because last week in the live we went in depth on the Post Saver and the fence armor. I'd like to talk about application. How you apply the Post Saver to a 4x4. So on like the DIY front, so a homeowner is installing some posts. The question was, as a DIY installation, how can I prolong the life of my wood post? And that got us into the Post Saver and the fence armor.
Yeah.
On the DIY, what are the best practices for installing one of these on like a 4x4 wood post?
Yeah. So you can go to Stain and Seal Experts YouTube channel.
Okay, there you go.
There's videos of it. You need a heat source. So that can be a weed torch like you clean fence rows with. That can be a small torch, like you buy the little tanks with the little torch end. Some people do it with a heat gun. It's a little slower. We sell all kinds of big torches. We sell the best torches in the world. They're Swedish torches, and but you just need a heat source, preferably a propane torch. And basically, you mark 2 inches above the ground line. So if you're setting your post 24 inches deep, then you make a mark on the post at 26 inches, and then just think of a brown paper sack with the bottom cut out of it. You just open this thing up, you slide it right up on the post where it's supposed to be and you put some heat on it, and that's it. And when you get good at it, you can do it in about 30 seconds. If you're really bad at it, you can do it in about a minute. So it's super fast and it's proven. I mean, it's definitely proven. We get a lot of pushback from fence guys that say, "Oh, well, that's no good, or it's slow, or whatever." Doesn't matter what you think. A lot of people are buying these things, and a lot of people want them.
Well, absolutely. So what really sent it home for me is, so we were chatting with Ruben Borg, who runs a very large fence company, and he's infatuated with them. Like every post he sells, more or less, has these on it.
Yeah.
And he went on and on about just how in love he is. And now Ruben's a smart marketing guy too. So Ruben knows how to market the value of this. Of, hey, these posts, it's a similar conversation as to steel post. Hey, these posts that we just had installed for you, or that we're getting ready to install for you, you don't want to replace those in like 8 or 10 years, right? Okay. Well, then let us help you protect them to preserve the life of them. Let's put this shield on this post, and that will keep rotten insects that sit in the aerobic zone of the soil, keep them off there, and help prevent rot.
Yeah, well, if you think about this, let's see, your average retail price on this times 25. It's $75 to put them on your average 25 post job. So the studies have already been done.
$75 total.
Why would you not do that?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, it's ludicrous to not do it. So you're getting a 20-year warranty. We're probably going to go to a 25-year warranty soon. But in April of last year, we pulled the post up out of a test. It was a third-party test, and we've been doing this since 1994. So we know it works. But we've had third-party testing. We're at the 20-year mark. We pulled the controls, which had no sleeves on them, out of the ground, and then we pulled the stakes, the post out of the ground that had the sleeves on them. And there's zero rot, absolutely zero rot at 20 years. And the posts that did not have the sleeve on them, these are treated posts that did not have the sleeve on them. I think maybe 33% of them were left. Wow. And the rest, I think I think it was maybe 15 posts. I think 2 or 3 were completely gone. 2 or 3 were, gone a little bit. 2 or 3 held up okay, but they all had visible signs of rot. And the ones with the sleeves, absolutely zero rot. It makes it impossible for a post to rot in the ground.
Yeah, that is incredible. And it's something easy enough that a homeowner can do, but also you can also systematize it on the fence installation side.
Well, here's another thing to think about that a lot of guys have never experienced. In Nashville in the mid-2000s, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009, we were putting in so much 4-rail with the 4x4x7 rough sawn full cut post where everybody was putting it in. It was going in like crazy. Well, turns out they treated those posts, but they didn't treat them properly. And so thousands and thousands of posts just fell over with fence attached to it. And who do you think those people called? Do you think they called the manufacturer? Or do you think they called the fence company?
Yep.
Well, they called us. They called the other fence company. They called everybody in town. Well, all these homeowners, what was the fence company supposed to do? They said, well, we bought treated lumber.
Yeah.
So they came out, they did a class action lawsuit. Everybody got sued. Everybody spent a ton of money defending themselves. And basically at the end of the day, the homeowners got their fence replaced. The contractors were left out to dry. So all the money we spent defending ourselves, it was I think our company spent $40,000. My family's fence company, not mine, but I think we paid $40,000, and there were 100 fence companies that were involved in this thing. So, whose fault was that? It was an accident, I'm sure, by the manufacturer. It was a total oversight. And but the thing is, with the post saver sleeve, that would have never happened. Would have absolutely never happened. And the thing that, again, that we keep talking about, premium guys sell premium.
That's right.
You know?
Well, one thing too, Caleb, that's kind of maddening is when you're talking about treated post. I mean, one, there's a variety of different treatments. You got ACQ, MCQ, and MCA are kind of the three most common. But you have different levels of those treatments, right? You've got, it's pressure treated, but it's not ground contract rated, or it is ground contact rated. There we go. Or you have extreme ground contact rated.
Yep.
So you're telling me, okay, so now we have at least 3 different levels of treatment within each type of treatment. That can get a little crazy, trying to figure out which level of treatment this post is. And at this point, you're trusting that the label actually went on the correct product, right? That it is the ground contact rated and it's not just the regular treated.
Well,
they all look the same.
Yeah, and is this a Monday morning at 10 a.m. post, or is this a Friday right before quitting time post? That's the thing. The one thing that I tell people, because I get a ton of pushback, it's like, well, my posts are treated. And I said, well, have you ever torn out a rotted post? Oh, yeah, 1,000 of them. Were those posts treated? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever torn out, telephone poles or utility poles that were rotted or pulled them? I've seen guys pull them out of the ground. They look beautiful, perfect utility pole. They pull it out, and you can see through it at the bottom.
It's just eaten up.
And they're going, oh my God, that could have killed somebody.
Uh-huh.
And if a car bumps into it and then it just falls over, and it could kill somebody like that.
Yeah.
But all these posts that we've replaced in our life that were rotted or torn out or fell over because of wind damage, because the post got soft, they were all treated post.
Yeah.
90% of them.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I think the Post Saver product, I think you guys have a great thing going on there. I like it a lot. Boo Boo's got a couple other questions. Let's keep it on the Post Saver front real quick, and then he's got a different question as well. Could the Post Saver product be used for underwater pier applications in fresh water?
You can use it for that, and it's also we've got certification. It can be used in organic growing operations for like wineries. So a big problem with wineries, they can't to have an organic winery, they can't use a treated post to hold their trellises. And so they find themselves replacing the post every 18 months.
Sure.
With Post Saver Sleeve, we've actually got the documentation from the government that it can be used in organic operations. It's that safe.
That's huge. Yeah,
it's huge, man. It really is.
Yeah. So you took that post from an 18-month post to
a 20-year
25-year. Yeah.
And we don't know how long it's going to last. We've got them in the ground that are 25 years old that still are perfect shape. So in theory, maybe these things are going to last 50 or 100 years.
Yeah. I always get a chuckle when we're talking about chain link fence. Someone asks, well, how long is the chain link fence going to last? I'll say, man, I have no idea. I'm really not sure. I can tell you what I think it's going to be, but we've got a chain link fence that's installed at the county fairgrounds that in the late 50s, and it hasn't failed yet. So I don't know. Like, we're still trying to figure out how long it's going to take this thing to fail.
Yeah, we in Nashville, Nashville used to be chain link for everything.
Yeah.
Rio Grande Fence Company started out here, but in Sears Roebuck, we'd tear down Sears and Roebuck fences from the 40s that were we were going, man, I wish we could get posts and things like that nowadays, but they last a long time. Oh,
the pipe was thick and the chain link was heavy, full weight. It was good material to get.
Yeah, and the dome caps and rail ends were built as one unit. Cool stuff.
Yep, we still get people that are trying to find those. And I don't know where in the world you can find them. I've tried reaching out to a few people. It's a good concept, I guess. The problem is if your corners aren't exactly 90 degrees, you're kind of out of luck.
They built things square back in the day, though, didn't they?
That's right. Well, that's the thing is all the lots were square.
Yeah.
I understand cul-de-sacs were likely a thing, but outside of cul-de-sacs, lots were square. Now, every developer has software that will maximize each square foot of every lot, into whatever shapes and sizes they can get to maximize how many lots they can get per acre, not square.
Changing world.
That's right. All right, Boo Boo's got a follow-on question. How do you all use industry and economic data to drive company decisions? I love this question. I can't wait to hear you answer it.
Joe, I don't know what you do, but I'll tell you what, I think it's wise to be aware of the industry. I moved a ton of books. I've got them. I mean, I definitely like four faces of value in business management, strategic planning. I read these things and I try to stay up on them, but man, I make my decisions based on what my heart tells me to do.
Sure.
I mean, I believe in intuition and things like that. And anytime I don't follow my gut feeling, I usually get kicked in the teeth. And so I generally try to know what all sides are doing. I've heard some people say they read the newspaper and the Bible every day so they know what both sides are doing. and I try to, I try to know what's going on in the world, but I'll put my gut to the, if it's got to pass the gut check.
Sure. So in the fence installation, if we're talking about economic data, we look at new housing starts. So if we're talking about fences, the majority of new fences are around new construction.
Mm-hmm.
It just stands to reason. There's three things that keep a fence company in business. My granddad used to say: kids, pets, and bad neighbors. Top three things. Well, in a new house, if you're buying a new house, it's probably a young family that's got kids and pets, and they're moving next to neighbors, and so they're probably all going to need fences. Now, we don't build them all. I don't want to build them all, but we build a fair amount of them. So by watching new house starts per county in our area, it gives us a pretty good idea. Now, we follow on 10 to 12 months after new home starts. It usually takes, however, 8 months to build a house, and then it takes a family a little bit to move in and figure out that they need a fence. So 10 to 12 months, somewhere in there. So we look at new home starts a year ago to try to gauge fence installs or fence starts for this month.
Yeah.
And actually what we're doing is we're looking at new home starts this month to forecast out fencing starts a year from now. So we try to have a decent idea, what demand's going to be like. Is it perfect? No, but it gives us a little bit of insight just into that. Now, industry data, obviously pricing is huge. So, I talk to other fence builders, almost daily in other markets about what they're seeing. So what I have noticed is, so we're in the Midwest. What I've noticed is fence companies on either coast get price increases first, and then they come to the Midwest for whatever reason. They're not typically company-wide. Now, sometimes they are. Master Halco just sent out, actually everyone sent out letters, but Masters was company-wide. So the guys over on the East and West Coast got it the same day we got it here in the Midwest. So sometimes it doesn't work like this, but a lot of times the coasts get it first, and then it comes to the interior. So it's talking to fence guys about what increases they're seeing, and all of that. So industry data helps us there too, to try to know that, okay, well, if the coast, if they just got a 10% increase on round pipe, I'd better try to buy a bunch of round pipe now, because I know in the next month we're going to get a price increase on round pipe. That's how we try to do it. But the biggest thing we watch is new home starts.
Yeah. Well, I think with us, because we make oil-based stains, we're really watching this oil thing happen right now. And we've made a lot of phone calls. And there's been a lot of people touched by this pipeline thing and this shutdown in Texas and in the South, where the public land you can't drill, and the fracking and things. So we are curious to see what happens. And I know everybody in the oil business right now is, some of them are freaking out. Some of them are acting like, it's not bothering them. But everybody's looking at the horizon in the oil business right now. So we'll see. And that for us, we've got to be ready to pivot at any moment if something, some kind of what is it called, executive order, something comes down with oil, then we've got to be ready to pivot or close.
So Caleb, I did want to talk to you about that. So we're starting to see price increases, or not starting to see. We've seen price increases for wood and now steel. Vinyl price increases have been pretty much consistently steady. Also supply issues. What are you seeing in the stain industry in general, and more specifically you as a company, in terms of, maybe supply issues or pricing issues?
Well, oil is going up. All petroleum products are going to go up. Is that going to mean an increase in price to our end user for our stains? Not as long as I can help it.
Sure.
But obviously, we have to increase at some point, and we haven't really drawn that line in the sand yet. We're going to see what happens. But all that we can do is try to buy bigger and bigger bulk, and to try to save money that way. And just really, we're kind of going to be at the mercy of the market when it comes to oil. But we got to hedge our bets with other technologies. So that's it. And if the oil, I don't want to see the oil go away, because I love the oil-based stains. I love it.
Yeah.
Especially the way we're doing it as eco-friendly as really as possible. But if that happens, then the state of the art's just got to change.
Sure.
And so we got to figure out the next thing. So what's that going to be? Maybe the next thing, we're sending out enough stain to stain 250 feet of fence in a small envelope, and you just pour it into your bucket of water and you're good to go. Maybe that's what the future is going to hold. I don't know.
Interesting.
But you never know.
Sure. Well, as a fence guy, that's something I like to try to keep in touch with is, where are my material costs going? And stain, we do a fair amount of staining, and we also sell a fair amount retail. And
and your dip tanks, you're using half as much, so your cost will stay. You'll be okay.
Sure.
And that, you could look at that as basically a preparation you made, whether you knew it or not, to help curb those costs for your customer. Right. So,
and we're starting to get that question from a few fence companies that we sell retail to of, hey, what's my price on stain? And as of right now, it's same price. Don't worry, you will be the first to know when I know.
Mm-hmm.
But we're starting to get that question kind of more consistently, because in the fencing industry, unfortunately, price increases have become just kind of the normal thing.
Yeah, and I think we're going to feel it at the pump too.
Yep.
And that's when you see gas prices shoot up to $4 or $5. If that happens, I hope and pray it doesn't. But if it does happen, then I think you're going to see it across the board. Bread's going to cost more. Milk and eggs are going to cost more. A stamp, the price of a stamp's going to go up because the mail carriers are going to pay more for fuel. So
because transportation costs.
Yeah, and and you remember back in, I can't remember when it was, but back 10 years ago, we would see fuel surcharges on everything.
Yep.
And those will probably start becoming back. Just a normal.
For the companies that let them go, it still gripes me
that they got them on there.
Yeah, they never did come off. And so I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me you're paying half as much for diesel now as when it really spiked, but that fuel surcharge is still there? I think you just got comfortable with it being there.
Well, that's the problem that everybody sees and hates, is that it comes up, and you just really don't know, did the price really not ever go back down, or did it go back down and nothing's being said about it?
Well, and unfortunately, so I've gotten that question twice in the comments on some of my videos is, do you see the price going back down? When do you see the price going back down? Unfortunately, in the fencing industry, there's kind of a bad habit from material suppliers that the price never really goes back down.
Yeah.
They're very quick to send out increases, but it never seems to decrease. And never is probably the wrong word. Rarely decreases. So, so the price of lumber. Now, the price of lumber has come back, fortunately, somewhat. Where you were seeing price of 4x48 pre-pandemic at $7, $6.50, $7, something like that for a pressure treated pine. And then they went all the way up to like $19, $20 in places. Now they're coming back down to $10.
Yeah.
So, net still an increase. Just not as much of an increase.
And I think you couple that with, if this minimum wage goes up, I think that you could see a lot of increases in a lot of industries on that too.
It's going to have to. It's going to have to. And I think that's one of those unintended consequences of, and really, that gets us into a whole economic discussion on inflation and everything like that. But, if as a business, if I have to pay my workforce more, now understand none of my workforce is minimum wage. I pay my guys and gals more than minimum wage, but when they're always going to compare their wage to, all right, so I'm at minimum wage plus X. Okay. Well, once minimum wage goes up,
that's the
they're
danger.
going to want to make more, and so I think that's the problem. So if my labor costs increase, then my finished price has to increase.
Yeah.
My finished price is my materials plus my labor plus my overhead plus my profit equals my finished price. I mean, that's what it is.
It's the same for all of us.
Sure.
That's the problem that I've seen. We don't work anybody minimum wage,
right.
Not close. But when that level rises up, everything's got to go up, or and it's only going to be a matter of time before people go, hey, wait a minute, I'm making this and minimum wage is that. I need a raise.
Well, so in just fantasy numbers, you're paying somebody $20 an hour. The current minimum wage is $10 an hour, like whatever it is, wherever you are. Well, now if minimum wage goes to 15, they're going to say, wait a minute, I used to get paid twice minimum wage. So now I need to go from 20 to 30.
Yeah.
Just to stay ahead of the game, for you to correctly, value my position, because I was twice minimum wage. I need to be at $30 an hour. And now that you have just increased your labor costs,
and I think they have a valid argument.
I do too. I'm not arguing against it. I'm not arguing against it. We need to base value on something, and minimum wage seems to be.
I think that's a sliding scale too, because every business in America will have to have that battle, and so everything is gonna you get hit with the fuel, and then you get hit with just because. I mean, let's talk about the people who are hiring for minimum wage. Minimum wage is designed for, you're 15 years old, you need some responsibility, you get a job at the grocery store.
Sure.
You make minimum wage. Well, now if, minimum wage workers 15 an hour at the grocery store, that's really going to hit us down the bread aisle and down the meat aisle. And so is double minimum wage, is 30 enough?
Well, yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, like I said, this is going to get into an economics talk with inflation, but I mean, it's all a dog chasing its tail is all this turns into, because the price goes up. So now all of a sudden it's, $15 an hour is just simply unlivable. That's not a living wage anymore. It really needs to be $30 an hour, and then 50, and then 100. It's where does it start and where does it stop? I mean, none of the crew that we employ, none of our team members have minimum skills. Like, they are all highly skilled individuals, and so they're paid accordingly. But what happens when minimum wage affects their perceived value? They get it's a vicious circle. It really is.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, I think that money would be better spent if it were spent on trades, in trade schools, things like that, to get people to, because we've got a lot of college graduates now that don't have a job, but I guarantee you, if they knew a good trade, there's a lot of trades that aren't hard. There's a lot of trades where you don't have to dig holes.
Sure.
And, there's like electronics, for instance. My father-in-law, he's retired now, but he was he did basically electronics for a public utility. Great living, great retirement, in its trade school. And they actually paid him to go to do some college, during the thing. So if we could move people into being useful rather than just upping a wage and get more people to be useful, the wages are just naturally going to go up. But the minimum wage will stay the same for those minimum skill jobs. So I think we just need more skills.
I think you're right. I'm a big proponent of trade schools, on learning trades rather than going to college or university.
Well, how many guys do you meet at these groups where you get around any kind of service worker? You go to the Contractor Sales Academy. You got painters, plumbers, pond builders, you name it, construction, general contractors. If you walked in there and you said, I got a guy right here who's going to make your problems go away, he's $35 an hour, who wants him? And if what you said was true, they would all take him.
100%.
Everyone would take him. And that's just the way it is. With skill is money,
That's right.
And
so I do a yearly talk at our one of the area high schools that has a I don't want to say it's a VOTEC class. It's a trades class. And the one thing I told them was like, listen, right now, the dirtier you can get in a trade, the more you'll get paid. Period. End of story. Like it just is. But to your point, there's a lot of trades that you don't get very dirty, but they're a trade, and they're just not seen as a desirable, thing to do. But so I've got a buddy that owns plumbing, heating, and air. Plumbing is not seen as a great trade, but these plumbers get paid very well. And it's not all what you think plumbing would be. It's not all stopped up toilets and stopped up septic and that sort of thing. There's the install side. I mean, you get into that on the service side, but on the HVAC side, he was saying that if you go through your trade, you go through your schooling, go through the apprenticeship, and make it out on the other side of apprenticeship. I think he said apprenticeship is like 3 or 4 years. You come out on the other side making $45,000 a year, and you have a company vehicle. That's a pretty good deal.
Hey, I'll tell you a great trade. My grandfather was a plumber, and he in the state of Oklahoma, and I don't quote me on this, but he taught and ran the state plumbing commercial, like the license thing for a while. He had his own plumbing company, and he worked for the state for a while, like the top guy, the plumber, and he would teach you how to plumb. And he would say, all right, here, we're going to teach you. And he'd say, okay, we've got a hospital. There's 400 rooms. And you go, wait a minute. Let's just plumb a house. But plumbing was a great trade. But he said, if I had to do it over again, I'd be an electrician. And I said, well, why? And he said, well, because as an electrician, I could do that as an 80-year-old man, because all I need is a little tool pouch, a little tool belt, and I can pull wire. I could get a kid to pull wires for me, and I can hook things up in an electrician. And that's a really highly paid trade. If you've ever had any electrical work done, Yeah. But that's a solid trade.
Yeah, we just bought some buildings next to us to move into, and one of those trades that we're using right now is electricians. We're also, and I thought about this the other day because we're remodeling an office, so it's already heated and cooled, the space, so it's inside, and we're employing, we're doing some flooring work, we're doing some framing, electrical, network. And I was like, these jobs, like, you're inside, right? And you're not digging holes and you're not dealing with rock. Now, I don't want to diminish these trades. I understand hard work is hard work, but not a bad gig. Inside in an air conditioned or a heated space out of the weather.
Well, man, I tell you what, I did a training video on how to restore a deck not too long ago. And we went out and we washed it. And I had an okay time washing it. That was fun. We stripped it and sanded it, and that was fun. But I got that stain brush in my hand, and I stained the deck, and I had no worries in the world. And I thought, man, I sure do miss this. And the trades are fun. That's one thing about going to an office every day, man. It's the same old, same old. When you get to be in the trades, you get to make your rounds. You go see people. You have a great time. You have hard days. You have good and easy days. And
sure.
But, you get to stop at Bass Pro Shop when you drive by, and you can live, the trades are fun. They're really, really a fun thing.
Well, and what's fun is, or what's funny is, so as our business grows, I find myself more in an administrative role than actually a production role. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the most fun I have is in this. So when cleaning season starts, that's my gig. I do the cleaning. I've got the trailer built out. I do all the fence cleaning because I love it. It gets me out. It introduces me. I get to interface directly with the clients, which is something I miss dearly, hearing stories and just forming those relationships, but it also gets me out, like outside, gets me out of the office, and it's doing a task. It's doing an incredibly fulfilling task. It's so satisfying when you're cleaning a fence to watch it go from gray and dingy to really nice and looking restored, knowing that the next step is this thing's going to get stained and it's going to look incredible.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's probably my favorite time of year is cleaning season, because it gets me out of the office into backyards again, and doing something that I enjoy.
Yep. Joe, check for questions. We've got We've got timers on our lights in the office. I'm going to go way in front of it, turn it back on.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So Boo says the gut is the fastest data processor known to man. It really does make good decisions. It's proven. I agree. There's a book. Oh man, I forget which one it was. It was an audio book, but it was talking about intuition, and the general premise is, to your point, Boo, that you trust your intuition, because your intuition is built on past experience. And you can call it gut feeling. You can call it, the hairs tingling in the back of your neck. You've got to trust your intuition because it's telling you something for a reason. Right. And I am a huge believer in intuition and gut feeling. I absolutely am.
Yeah. I heard Jeff Bezos said he made all his decisions with his heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is it's your reaction for a reason. And just because you can't put your finger on it and know exactly why, you got to trust that. So I was watching a documentary. What was it? It was so there's a YouTube channel you should check out. It's called Concrete, but it's with a Koncrete. This guy interviews just some off the wall people. One of the guys was an ex CIA field operator or officer, and his whole thing was intuition. So they train them to build on their intuition and just trust it. And as soon as that first hair picks up, they're already zoning in on why is my intuition picking up on this?
Yeah,
because there's so many. Your body is basically, to your point, a data processor. It's bringing in light, it's listening to sound, it's feeling the air, the ambient temperature, it's taking all this in. And I really think that our body has more data inputs than we know what to do with. Right. So it's that thing where if you stare at someone, they can feel it, and then they end up looking at you. Right. Well, what is that? Like,
well,
you're not physically touching them, you're just looking at them, but there's some data input somewhere that tells that person that you're looking at them.
Well, we don't have consequences nowadays like we used to. A million years ago, if a caveman or some nomads walked in, were looking for shelter, and they walk into the front of a cave, and that sense raises up, you better believe they didn't go in there, because there's probably a saber-toothed tiger in there and it would kill all of them, and the people that didn't follow that, you just died.
Right.
And to my point earlier, every time I don't follow that gut, it's like it comes back and bites me in the butt. I'm listening to my gut, and
the feeling for a reason.
Nowadays is, I should have listened to that. But I mean, 1,000 years ago, a million years ago, it could have definitely cost you your life to not listen to it.
So Boo Boo, I agree completely. Brandon's got an interesting point. Brandon Markham says the companies in Utah are in a price war. Be interested to know what that's about. I mean, the suppliers certainly aren't in a price war, at least not here. It's weird that all the manufacturers have gone up roughly the same amount.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe the guys in Utah to get in a room together and talk, just like all the suppliers got in a room and talked.
Yeah, apparently they're all on the same page. All right, Boo Boo says, great talk, guys. Love the conversation. Let's add bourbon or beer next week. Cheers, guys. See you next week. I'd love to, but I've got about a half-hour drive home. I'm a bourbon guy. I love drinking bourbon, but I'm a half-hour drive home, and I don't think that's a safe choice on my
I agree with you, Joe. Yeah, same here. What's your bourbon of choice right now?
Oh, man, what is? So right now, Buffalo Trace. I'm drinking a store pick of Buffalo Trace. That's really good. I also have a store pick of some Maker's Mark 46. So that's always a good one. I don't know. I did a deal a little while ago. You probably saw it go around Facebook, where it was like it's kind of like a waterfall of, I'm going to post this, and if you see this, then you send a bottle of bourbon to whoever's in front of me, and the people that you share it with send a bottle to me, and their friends send one to you. It's kind of like a pyramid scheme, except for the guy on the top's not getting all the bottles. Like, the bottles are spread out. Anyway, I got a bunch of bourbon bottles, and I haven't gotten through them all. But so Buffalo Trace is always good. It's hard to find here locally. I think it's hard to find really anywhere. Buffalo Trace is always good. I like Makers. If I can find it, Eagle Rare. I am a huge fan of Eagle Rare. How about yourself?
Joe, I'm an amateur when it comes to that. A friend of mine gave me some Whistle Pig, like 15-year. It was a high-end Whistle Pig, fantastic. I've had some Woodford Reserve. I don't know if that's high-end or low-end, but I thought it tasted great.
Woodford's a good like introductory. So it's, depending on which one it is, it's probably like a $40 to $60 bottle thereabouts, which is kind of mid-range.
Yeah, so I've never been much of a drinker, but I do. My buddy bought that Whistle Pig over, and I was like, man, I could do this. So,
Well, I'll tell you this: I'm planning when I fly in. I'm planning on stopping by, a liquor store along the way somewhere and finding a nicer bottle, because I know at some point we're all going to find ourselves in the same room one evening, and we might all take samples of that.
well, that sounds like a plan. Sounds good.
All right, let's see. So Boo says, learn valued skills. I can't agree with that enough. That's when we were talking about trade talks, or talking about trades. I mean, the thing right now is trades are getting paid. Like, there's no way around it. It's supply and demand, right? If you have less people performing a task, then it's going to be higher demand for that, and therefore they're going to get paid more.
You are right.
It's just,
you are right.
We generally start production guys off around $15 an hour, which in my mind is kind of bonkers because I started out. Now, listen, I'm gonna start sounding like my dad, my granddad. Back when I was a kid and I started, it was like $5.50 an hour, and I was grateful to get it.
$40 a day here, man. $40 a day.
Yeah, So, I mean, it is what it is, but if you have a skill and you can put yourself into an industry that has a labor shortage or that is looking for labor, has a high demand but a low supply, I think you'll find yourself in a pretty good spot.
Absolutely.
All right. Last question, guys, or last statement, I guess. Craig Yarmula Senior says, as a laborer, I love working outside. I agree. It's probably one of my favorite parts of being a fence guy is just being outside in nature. What do you think, Caleb?
I agree. If you can't be climbing a mountain, you might as well be in somebody's backyard. At least you get to breathe that fresh air.
That's right. Staining guys kind of have it maybe a little bit better. When it's raining, you still got to build fence. Like that's just the way it is. Because like you said before,
you got to clean them in the rain.
Well, that's true. I actually enjoy cleaning them in the rain.
Yeah.
As long as it's not like a downpour, because it's helping me do the work anyway. Mm-hmm. If I can come in right after a rain, that's perfect because the ground's already saturated. I don't have to worry about wetting things down. I can come in, I can clean real quick, and I can rinse it off and be on my way.
I agree.
All right, let's see. Okay, so Brandon had clarified his pricing war. It said the install companies are installing vinyl starting at $18 a foot.
Wow.
That's bonkers. Because our labor costs I don't want to get into numbers. That's like a whole. So this conversation comes up in the Facebook groups about numbers, about guys don't understand why we can't talk about numbers. So it's a Sherman Act. It's the antitrust laws, right? So there's a term in the Sherman Act that talks about one of the violations of antitrust is price comparisons. So basing your price based on comparable prices, which is exactly what's going on in these Facebook groups when someone says, hey, I'm going to build this thing for X. What do you guys build this thing for? That's price comparison, and it's in the Sherman Act. Like, it is a violation of antitrust law. Now, is someone going to show up outside your house and haul you off to prison? Probably not. But why even go down that road? It's kind of my thing. But $18 a foot is bonkers. I mean, it's roughly. I mean, it's just bonkers. I mean, that's going to be the price of material.
Well, let me tell you what I would do, Brandon. Let those guys get booked out 6 or 8 weeks right now.
Yep.
And then March 1st, when your phone starts ringing and they can't take any more work on, you just come in at your normal rate. Yeah, I'll talk about pricing in the fence business a little bit because I've been out of it for 10 years.
Sure.
12 years. The rules are the same. You need to know your cost, and I would recommend a 50% margin. You can, a lot of guys are running on single-digit margins, or they're running on 30% margin, and then they're starving to death. And they're never, they're still driving the same old truck. If you start looking at the businesses that are like here in Nashville, we got Lee Company, we got Hiller Plumbing. These are $100 million, $500 million companies. They have brand new trucks. They have employees with background checks. They have, uniforms. They have good training, good equipment, good office staff. They have that because they're running a 50% or greater margin.
Sure.
And there's some companies that, Joe, where the people only care about going on vacations and buying a new Rolls Royce every year. But most companies that reinvest back into most of the companies that are charging those high margins, they're reinvesting back into the company through higher wages, through training programs, through benefits packages. And if you ever want to get there, you're going to have to forget about the low ballers, and you're going to have to make the leap of faith, and you're going to have to forget about what everybody else is doing and just do what you're going to do.
I agree. I mean, our company is based off of 50% gross profit as well. And fence guys stare at me like I've got 3 eyeballs on my head, saying 50%, you can't do that. That's overcharging. That's all. That's only overcharging if you don't bring that much value to the table.
Mm-hmm.
If you're building a fence and these are theoretical random numbers, but if you're building a fence for say $50 an hour and the market is 25, or I say the market, your competitors are charging 25, are you doing the disservice or are they? If you're bringing $50 a foot worth of value to your customers, then those people that are at $25 a foot are doing a disservice to their market because they're not. But now understand this, and I want to be clear. If you're only bringing $25 a foot to the table value-wise, but you're charging $50 a foot, that is wrong. Like, that is incorrect. You need to find a way to bring $50 a foot worth of service, or of value to your service. I want to be clear about that because some guys take this as, well, you should just double your prices and do the same work.
Yeah.
And that's not it at all.
And here's the thing. I'll give you an example. A house that I sold a few years ago. Before I could sell it, I had to change a 3-way light switch plug in the hallway that had burned out, right after I closed or right after I got a contract on it. Those things happen, right? And I needed to ground my water line. It was just something I wanted to do. I wanted to ground my water system so if lightning struck, it wouldn't electrocute you in the bathtub.
Yeah.
And maybe one other thing, whatever it was something I could do. No problem. I go get a grounding rod, run some copper wire, and put in a $3 switch. No problem. I called Hiller Plumbing, the company I talked about. They do HVAC, heating, cooling, and plumbing, and it was $1,500. Could I have done it for $75 myself? Yeah. Did I have time? No. If a guy came out in his truck wearing a tank top, smoking a cigarette, would I have paid him $1,500? No, because he doesn't have an office. He doesn't have all these things. And he would have done it for $200 probably.
Sure.
When Hiller Plumbing came out, they answered the phone. They scheduled the appointment. They dispatched a person out. They told me they came out, told me what it was going to cost. They did it right there on the spot. They had the stuff on the truck to do it with, and they were out of there the same day. And I wrote that $1,500 check, and I sold my house and moved on. And most people have more disposable income than they do time a lot of times. And so if you can make that need go away or that problem go away, to do it properly, you've got to have people, and people cost money, and to pay people, you got to get a margin.
That's right. That's right. When we charge 50%, the question is, well, where do you spend all that money? Well, I'll tell you, to your point, we reinvest it. We offer 401k matching. We offer, memberships to a local private medical practice so that our employees don't have to wait in a doctor's office to be seen. We offer dental and vision. We offer a complete, a packet. We pay for AFLAC, so disability insurance. So if someone gets hurt at home, they don't have to feel like they're forced to come in and work because they've got to make, they've got rent coming up or something to that effect.
What does that AFLAC cost on average per person?
Let's talk off air. It's not as much as you think it is.
Okay.
At least it wasn't as much as I thought it was. But the point being, this money we reinvest it, and we just bought a new building. So this money goes to a new building, which means that now our production shop, the size is tripled. So now we can build more gates. We can build bigger gates. We added a staining shop. So now we can offer.
What are you going to do now? You're going to hire more people.
Of course.
You're going to be forced to.
Of course. And
that's
we're going to reinvest into them.
So I agree. So that's the difference. There's nothing wrong with the owner operator. There's nothing wrong with lower margins. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to grow and scale, you have to charge for it. There's no other way.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
And I think saying that you have to charge for it maybe sounds bad. I
Well,
think a higher level, a bigger company has to charge a bigger price. It's a simple way to put it. Bigger company has to charge a bigger price.
yeah, because they have more overhead.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, to get to a finished price, you have your cost of materials, your cost of labor, your overhead, and your profit
Mm-hmm.
are kind of the four key things. So if your overhead is higher, then your price is going to be higher. It has to. It costs money to have an office. It costs money to have a nice voice answer your phone when someone calls, rather than you answer your phone out in the field. That
Mm-hmm.
costs money, but it's also a value to your client that someone's there on the other end of the phone to answer the phone when it rings. So
you are correct. You are correct.
it's bringing value to the client. If you can bring, in this random scenario, $50 a foot, if you can bring that value, then you would do them a disservice by trying to bring it for $25 a foot.
Well, let me tell you another story.
Sure.
Talk about perceived about value. Another thing that profit does. It's a beautiful thing because, or in cash flow and profit. When I was with Ruben in California, I spent time with everyone in his office, everyone in, the lattice maker, the guy running the machines in the back, with everybody. And part of that was going out with his managers and going out with his salesmen. And they've got one guy named Jeffrey, and they send him to anybody who's got a complaint because he's very soft-spoken and he's non-combative. And if they say, if you build the gate perfect, but they say it's not right, Jeffrey lets them get it out of their system. And then he says, okay, well, here's what we're going to do to fix it. And he just tells them like it is. But I remember we did a job, I went with them to a job, and their sidewalk, they tore an old fence down that wasn't straight. They built a new fence back that was straight. The old patio, they had a patio in the back corner of the yard that was poured concrete, and it was poured along the old fence. And rather than build the new fence crooked, they built the new fence straight. And I think maybe at one end there was a 1/4 inch difference. And but the fence guys didn't want to mess the line up. I don't blame them. And in my opinion, they did it right.
Sure.
And the people weren't happy with that. No problem. We're going to fix it. They came back out and they fixed it for free. And and those things happen,
Sure.
things happen, but when you're charging that better price, it's no problem to just be like, all right, you know what? We'll come in and fix it. You can take care of problems. If the transmission goes out of your number one truck, all right, we're going to fix it.
Sure.
It gives you options.
Yeah.
And people think that a 50% margin is a ton of money. Things can still be tight on a 50% margin. You still have to budget. You still have to be smart about it.
Of
But it
course.
just gives you more options for sure.
Yeah, because to bring that value to get you up to a $50 a foot in this random scenario, you've got associated costs to go with that.
Yeah, you better believe it.
So, I mean, it's not all profit. And that's what I mean by, if you're providing $25 a foot value, then you should not charge $50 a foot. You should figure out a way to increase that value. So we're going over time here. And so Caleb,
it's probably time to head to the house, isn't it?
Yeah, I appreciate you sticking around. I want to make one point here. So Brandon says, I'm at 15% margin and way over my competition. So I think there's also a misunderstanding between margin, markup, and between gross profit and net profit, right? So when we talk about 50%, we're talking about 50% gross profit. Between gross profit is your cost of goods. You double your cost of goods to get 50%, right? It's 100% markup, 50% margin. 10% net profit is after you've paid out all of your costs, all of your overhead, all of your ancillary costs of running the business. How much money you're left over at the end of the year?
Why don't you give us a scenario with $100 bill?
Yeah. So, all right. So again, random scenario. So say my material costs me $50 and my labor costs me $50. My cost to do this thing is $100. I would then charge $200 for the thing. Before I paid my electric bill, I'm not even factoring any of that in. My utilities, my rent, my overhead is not even considered. So that would be a 50% margin, 100% markup. Now, say my rent, so I charge $200. Well, say my rent and my utilities and all that added up to $80. So I had $100. My cost of goods sold was $100. I had $80 of other ancillary cost, overhead and all that. So that leaves me $20. So $20 is 10% net profit. $20 is my net profit. So I sold this thing for $200. It cost me, when the day is done, all in, my net costs are $180. So I netted out $20 net profit.
Yeah. So you did $200 in business. You ran a 50% margin, and you only kept 20% or 10%.
Yeah,
kept 10%. Correct. So that's the problem. A lot of guys say, I'm running a 15% margin. You're losing money. And I've seen so many guys in the fence business do it for years. We've been basically breaking even and losing money for years, and they don't feel it because they're living on cash flow. Yeah.
Well, yes. And like I said, I think there's a misunderstanding in general between margin and net profit. I mean, I think guys are confusing gross profit and net profit. So in my scenario where the things cost me $100, I sold them for $200. My gross profit was $100. My net profit was $20. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So if you talk to really big companies that make a lot of money, 10% net profit is kind of is kind of where a lot of people are. Everybody wants to be at 20, but it's hard, and it's really, these guys that are doing a ton of business that have the best people in place, they find it really hard to get to 20. Like they're 10 to 15%. What was the guy from Alpha and Omega Services in Australia? He said, he was doing what, 50 million a year. He said, I'd love to tell you I'm at 20% profit, but it's probably closer to 10. He said, that's just what it is.
A business that's doing well is typically at 10%. A company that is killing it is usually for a fence company, is usually around 15%. And those are the unicorns. There are a few out there, I'm sure, but I think most of the companies that are running well are running at a 10% net profit.
That's the way it goes.
What we all do, this just kind of clicked in my head. You and I both know Tom. I ought to have Tom on. He does a pretty good job at explaining margins and markups, and he is adamant about 50% gross profit.
Yeah. The way I like to look at it when I said $100 bill is basically, you got $25 in materials, you got $25 in labor. Well, you got 50 left over to pay all your bills with, and then you get into what are my costs for a month, and how many jobs am I doing a month? Now a real elementary way to figure it, and so you can figure out real quick. I'm not making any money.
Yeah.
And when you figure your light bill, your whatever you got, your truck payments, your trailer, your Bobcat lease, and all this stuff, and it's like, wow, you don't think about it, but yeah, you do actually have quite a bit of overhead.
Yeah, and it can sneak up on you. Overhead can creep, and that's a real thing. Is we try to do a good job at quarterly looking at our profit and loss and figuring out where is the overhead creep. What have we taken on that we did not take something away? What's going on here? And do we need to either raise prices, or do we need to try to cut out some expenses? Overhead creep is real, and it can really do some damage. So
that's it, man.
Well, Caleb, listen, I really appreciate it. Seems like every time we get to chatting, it runs a little bit long. So I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy.
Well, Joe, I appreciate it. Check out our full page ad in the Fence News. If you haven't seen it, Joe, open it up and look at that beautiful ad we got in there. We got one every month this year, so I'm very proud of that. And if you guys are in the fence business, you can see us there. So
very good.
That's it,
well,
man.
And one last plug for Stain and Seal University and Fence Installation School is going to be at the end of February. It's, of course, you can see it scrolling down at the bottom of your screens. There's also a link. It'll take you directly to the page to learn more information, to get some more information, and also sign up on the Google Sheet.
That's it, Joe. Have a great night.
Caleb, thank you. Guys, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors.
Good night.
Good night.